Hello there, friends. This is Spencer Michaud, and today we're going to be talking about the astrology of May 2024. I hope that you're doing well out there and having a beautiful Thursday afternoon. We're recording this on a Thursday for my own selfish purposes because today, if you didn't know, and if you're international, like today is the NFL draft, the National Football League draft in America, and it is something that I am pretty excited about. I'm a big football fan. So it's a little bit of I call it football Christmas, a little bit of a national holiday for me. So let me know in the chat if you're a football fan. It's okay if you're not. We're going to go through astrology today, but let me know the team that you're rooting for here in the chat today. And just let me know you're here if you're stopping in and where you're stopping in from. We're going to go on a journey today. We're going to be looking at a number of things for May. We're going to be looking at the lunations, the quarter moons, the new moons, the full moons. We're going to be looking at ingresses of planets, moving from one sign to another. We're going to look at solar phases, including Jupiter going Cazimi this month. We've got Mars conjoining the North Node. There's all sorts of cool things going on. So we'll break it all down for you in detail. I'm just going to I'm going to welcome a few friends here. So appreciate all of you stopping in. Andy H is here from England. What's up, Andrew? Nice to see you, friend. Hope you're doing well across the pond. We've got our international friends stopping in. Tarja is here from Finland. Says it's nice to hear your kind words after a very upsetting day. Oh no, Tarja, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, hopefully we'll brighten your day here. I'm in a pretty good mood today. So hopefully my enthusiasm is contagious. And I hope that you'll forgive me for just nattering on about the Green Bay Packers, which you could see I'm representing here today, who are my favorite team. Okay. Dawn is here. What's up, everybody? Says, hope you're having a great day in Mobile, Alabama. Who do y'all root for down there in Alabama, Dawn? What's the football team down there? What is the Atlanta Falcons, like close by in Georgia? Dallas Cowboys. Tell me who everybody is into down there, Don, because I'm curious. Since I'm not sure that Alabama has a pro team, I know that they love their Crimson Tide. But welcome, my friend. Tracy is here. Says hello, lovelies. Nice to see you. Says East Greenbush, New York here. California grown. Oh, Tracy. So are you a Giants fan? Are you 49ers fan? What are we talking here, Tracy? Let me know in the chat who your childhood football team was. Okay. So, friends, like I said, we're going to go on a journey here. Don says, most root for the Saints or the Falcons, but I did root for Pittsburgh and did until Roethlisberger. All my family's from PA and New Jersey. Oh, cool. So, you're close by to Atlanta. We've got the Louisiana, section over there, too. That's pretty cool. Pittsburgh's a storied franchise, Don, so that's pretty neat. Roethlisberger, a polarizing figure, but had some success over there. All right. So, friends, let's take a look. Let's do a few announcements before we get into this. Of course, we're talking about the astrology of May today, May 2024. Pretty exciting month. I think that the astrology actually looks pretty good. I think that there's some really interesting, nice things this month. So hopefully this will brighten your day a little bit. I know we've had a heck of an eclipse season. We're coming off a full moon in Scorpio, which has been really interesting. I'm overcoming some poison ivy on my wrists. I'll spare you showing it to you on camera, but been going through a lot of irritation myself with my body. And this full moon, coming off the full moon in Scorpio here, we've been learning how to let go of things that don't serve us and aren't good for our bodies. I've been going through learning about a low FODMAP diet. This is something that I've been struggling with some digestive issues for a good portion of my life, and came to some realizations about that at the full moon, and I've started to shift my diet around, and I'm feeling really good, friends. I've been in a lot of pain for a few years now. Like when I hit 40, those symptoms that were always there, but sort of were in the background, became a lot louder, and I'm feeling the best I have in a really, really long time. So enjoying coming off of this Scorpio full moon. I think that there's some good things that we can see when we let go of things that aren't good for us anymore, So that'll carry us into these new starts that we're going to have in May. So before I get into all the details of May, let me just make a few announcements here. So we've got 2024 offerings for you. I am a professional astrologer, a sports fan, if you couldn't tell already today. You have to forgive me for my giddiness. This is one of my favorite weeks of the year. The type of energy where we are projecting hope into the future is really exciting to me, and watching these young gentlemen's dreams come true that they've been working towards their entire life is just so inspiring to me, and seeing their stories and all of that, I love it. But 2024 offerings, friends, if you are in need of some guidance, go check me out at spencermichaud.com. I have a lot of different readings, transit readings, mythological-based astrology, natal readings. I have tutoring sessions available. I just love connecting and working with you all over there. So check that out on my website, spencermichaud.com. I also have a Taurus season sale going on right now. If you enjoy the work that I do here, I utilize a technique called the decans, which are dividing the signs into 10-degree sections, and I draw upon some of the tarot associations and fixed star associations with those 10-degree sections and the myths. You can find a webinar series that I did where I have a 2.5 to 3 hour webinars for each sign, going over all 36 faces or decans. And right now, the decans of Taurus is on sale at my website as well. So check that out during Taurus season, and it's a great way to support the show. I also have a beautiful partner named Tanya Andrews who has a magical business called Third Coast Mojo. You can check her out on Etsy. She has a number of magical offerings that help remediate challenging chart placements, to help bring good energy into your life, to help remove bad energy, anything you might need. She has a wonderful, wonderful Mars and Capricorn series with a number of sub-series that have come out recently. One of which you can see on the screen here is called I-Ching, the Conqueror Oil. I-Ching is a root that is very important in root work and in the hoodoo tradition. So you can see here you've got the I-Ching root. It's really about overcoming obstacles. And the animal that we got this month for May really speaks to that. So remember the I-Ching when we get to the animal, okay? But this is great for overcoming obstacles, great for empowerment and feeling like you can move forward with your life. So check that out on Etsy, Third Coast Mojo. She does great work, and a great way to support the channel as well. If you want to support the work that I'm doing here, you can today. There's a little $sign in the chat. It's called Super Chat or Super Sticker. That's the easiest, fastest way to support the channel. If you're enjoying the time that I'm spending with you today, there's a lot that goes into this. There's a lot of preparation previously in the week leading up to this. There's the time that I spend with you, and our interactions in the chat. You can buy a Super Chat, little $sign in the chat here today. That can help you to, that can help me. It can help you to help me, like support the channel, buy me the gift of time so that I can do the research that I need to do to continue bringing you the best quality content that I am capable of. You can also buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com after the fact, if that is a preferred method for you. Okay, those are our announcements. Thank you, friends. Thank you for your patience with all of that. Going to welcome some more folks here today. Let's see. Oh, yeah, Don's talking about Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah, he definitely had a difficult situation, or he created a difficult situation for himself with his actions. So a mixed bag with him for sure. Reverend Kai is here. Says, hello, friends. I actually got to catch a bit of a live. Always working on Fridays. Got to work in a couple hours, though. I'm glad you're here, Reverend Kai. And it was nice to see you yesterday in the live that I had an interview with my good friend, Vivi Henriette. Check her out at Art of the Zodiac. We had a nice conversation about some of these aspects coming up. So yeah, appreciate all of you supporting us in that regard. But yeah, we're doing it on Thursday today because it's draft day and my brain is just in draft mode. I'm going to go through the astrology with you, but I know that I'm going to be up late tonight watching the draft, and when I don't have as much sleep, I'm probably not going to be as good of an astrologer as I could be. So sometimes we make adjustments to the schedule so we can do things that we enjoy. That's the essence of Taurus, in my opinion. Work hard, play hard. All right. Tracy says, I played catch with the Cowboys as a kid at CLU, then CLC in the Thousand Oaks, California. I was 10. Kind guy, so I like them. Nice. That's always fun when we have a personal connection with a team from our youth. I really love the Green Bay Packers because my grandparents are from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I was born in Chicago, but I spent a lot of time in Milwaukee, Madison, all of those things around that area. I lived in the border of Illinois and Wisconsin. And for me, I visited my grandparents every single weekend, and the Packers were always on, and it was a way to connect with my family. And if you know anything about Wisconsin, because of their unique ownership arrangement, they don't have an owner. They're owned by the public, which I think is really cool. That makes me want to support them even more. It's kind of a really neat, unique situation in professional sports. And football is, Packers are like a religious experience in Wisconsin. So I'm an extremely loyal sports fan. So I couldn't be a fan of anyone else, even if I wanted to. So I'm excited about, kind of seeing the new players that we're going to be able to bring into the fold today, and all of the analytical things that I have for astrology, the brain that chews on those details. Same thing with sports. So it's something that allows me to utilize that Virgo stellium in a way that's enjoyable. Tracy says, tomorrow's my daughter's 17th birthday. Happy birthday, Tracy's daughter. Is that her in the little car seat there? So she's probably a lot bigger now. It says, Scarlett is a Taurus sun, Leo rising with a Virgo moon. I'm a Leo sun, Libra rising, Gemini moon. Oh, nice. So we've got some things in common. So give her a little Leo rising fist bump for me, because I'm a fellow Leo rising with you. Chatting with Liv is here. Charting with Liv, sorry. Says, hey, finally getting to catch one. I'm stoked. Everyone is doing great. I hope everyone is doing great. I hope you're doing great. Charting with Liv, fellow Taurian, like I said, got to enjoy yourself. Taurus season is probably my favorite season. I'm partial because I have a Taurus moon, but I love seeing all the flowering trees. In my area of Michigan, we have flowering eastern redbud trees, which I think are gorgeous. Everything is colorful. There's hope springs eternal, and it's just a beautiful time of year if you're able to get outdoors and just enjoy life a little bit. Okay, let's see. Bonnie says, I root for the NFL teams that draft my Georgia Bulldogs. Bonnie, well, you're in luck. You should root for the Green Bay Packers, because their general manager, Brian Gutekunst, has drafted a number of Georgia Bulldogs in the last few years, including Quay Walker, Devontae Wyatt. He drafted both of those in the same year. This year, he probably has a chance at drafting Javon Bullard, another safety. There's plenty of Georgia Bulldogs up in Wisconsin there. So, yeah, you probably like the Eagles, too, because they like the Bulldogs, too. All right, Bonnie, but I'm glad you're here, and go Dogs, right? John says, draft day is always fun. The hope of the next year. I feel you, Don. Hope springs eternal. And it is one of those things where we are really getting into a hopeful future. And it's fun for me. Mortal and Wild is here. Hey, Spencer, listening while cooking. I've been to see a little puss cat I shall be adopting today. Her name is Mabel. I've named her Queen Mob. Nice, Carol. That makes me so happy. Oh, Carol, our friend Carol, Mortal and Wild, lost her fur baby, her best friend for, a decade and a half, and has been going through the grieving process. And I'm so, so happy to hear that you are ready to open your heart again to love with another fur friend. So, Carol, that is super cool. I am excited for you. And give her a little scritch for me. Give her a little squanch and a scritch for me. Happy to hear that, Carol. Bonnie says, yes, go Pack, go Dogs. Yeah, exactly. Our general manager loves players from big schools, Power 5 conference. So keep your eyes peeled for that. There's one guy that the Pack might draft today named Amarius Mims. He's an offensive lineman who's 6'8", 340 pounds or something. And he's a Libra, by the way. And he's on their radar. So that might be the next in the pipeline of Georgia Bulldogs, potentially. Uh-oh, we've got some competing interests in the chat here. Roll Tide, Todd says. Oh, says, I do respect Bama, but anything but the Gators, right? Oh, that's hilarious. We've got some college football fans in here starting to rib each other playfully. Says, eek, my team is LSU. I love Georgia, though. Used to adore Ray Goff. I also thought he caught a raw deal. Yeah, LSU has a stud wide receiver in the draft today named Malik Neighbors, who could be a transcendent talent in the mold of Jamar Chase, if you're familiar with him. He's, of course, Jamar Chase, another LSU great. All right. Yes. And Reverend Kai says, congrats, Mortal Wild. It's so wonderful. It is wonderful. That's probably the best news I've heard all day, Carol, is being able to get you back on the fur baby train. I know that you've got so much love to give, and that I hope that you and that new little companion have a wonderful future together. Stellar Rendition is here. It says, yay, it's been a while since I've made it live, but I'm watching the replays. Also lost my fur baby, and it's been tough for sure. Oh, I'm sorry, Stellar Rendition. But you know what? I'll tell you what. Go through that grieving process. It is one of the most difficult things ever. I lost my fur baby in 2017, and it was really hard. But you go through the process, and then there's a new fur baby oftentimes that crops up. I was so in love with my previous fur baby kitty bear, an olive tabby that I had for about 12 years, that I could only replace her with two fur babies. So now I have two large Maine Coon mix cats, the Gandalf and Radagast, and they are wonderful, wonderful companions. They don't make appearances on the show as much because when they are in my office while I'm live streaming, they like to go behind the chairs and unplug the router. And that's a problem. They bump the router and take me offline. And that you don't want that when you're live streaming. So that's a big reason. But hang in there, Stellar Rendition. And there will be love. There will be hopefully a vehicle for your love. I mean, that's the thing. The love that we have to give to these fur babies never dies, right? We just are finding new outlets for it when you're ready. Carol took the prerequisite morning time, and it's different for everyone. For me, I was like, my house is way too empty. I need to get these cats now. Like, I lost my cat, and a week later, I was like, I got to adopt some babies. I need to love something. I need to cuddle something. And I just found the perfect ones, and it's been great ever since. Charting with Liv says, Seminoles. Oh, we got a Florida State fan here. Well, Liv. Trey Benson, running back, could be drafted in the second or third round this year. Jared Verse, linebacker, edge rusher. Renardo Green. I've been doing my research this year. I know that you got some Seminoles. There's probably at least 4 or 5 Seminoles that are going to get drafted in the next couple of days. So it's always nice to see people stopping in from those different places. Carol says, thank you. I'll send you a picture. And I feel you, Stellar Rendition. It is the worst. Absolutely. Yes, send us a picture, Carol. I want to see that little fur baby too. Is it is it an orange cat? I don't know. I love orange cats, but all of the colors of the rainbow of kitties are amazing. KP1231 is here. Says, hi, Spencer and all. Joining a bit late. Glad to finally catch you live. Nice to see you, Karen. I'm trying to remember everyone's name who has weird usernames, but stopping in from Cleveland, so I'm imagining you're paying attention to the Browns today. Cleveland Browns, maybe? Okay. All right. Stellar Rendition says, love Maine Coons. I had when I was young. He was so smart. Yes, they are scarily intelligent. I have one. Gandalf is my gremlin, intelligent boy who it's kind of like I have to keep an eye on him. He's so smart. And Radagast he has a good heart. He's a little bit derpy. He is not what you would consider traditionally intelligent, but he is a lover. But Gandalf, I got to keep an eye on him because he speaks a lot of human words, you know. All right, friends. Thank you so much for stopping in today. Please do me a huge favor. If you are new here, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the video. That's an easy way to support the channel and increase our reach and please the algorithmic gods. Subscribing lets you know when I'm going to go live. You can also sign up for my email list so that you know when new classes, new offerings, new Third Coast Mojo things are coming out. All of that you can find out on the Spencer Michaud email list. So appreciate all of you. All right, let's dive into it. I almost did a NFL draft special today. So, but I was like, well, we got to get the astrology out there. So big picture thoughts for May. So there is lunations, ingresses, solar phases, and out of bounds planets is the way I think of the big picture thoughts. Um, the really good news of May, in my opinion, as I was doing my research this week, was that the sun is going to be moving through a benefic enclosure this month. How cool is that? We've been dealing with the malefic, the challenging enclosures of Saturn and Mars to Venus earlier in the year and to Jupiter as we're recording this still. But the sun will be moving in between Venus and Jupiter, which I find very exciting. I am super stoked for that. I think that a lot of the plans that we've been making over the past few months will start to be able to move forward with support, with resources, we're going to be able to take action on some of the things that are most important to us with Mars and Aries throughout most of the month, and Venus and Taurus providing resources for us materially. So the other big thing that I think is worth pointing out, just big picture wise, Jupiter is going to be moving into Gemini, into its exile. We have we were coming off of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in April. We have a Jupiter cazimi before it moves into Gemini in the late stages of Taurus, which is interesting. Mars will be conjoining the North Node. And we have a number of contacts with planets to Uranus, a number of conjunctions with Uranus. The Sun conjoins Uranus, Venus conjoins Uranus, and then I believe Mercury conjoins Uranus at the end of the month. So a lot of breaking out of our old habits, our old routines, our old whatever. Jupiter, we'll talk in depth about Jupiter moving into Gemini, but the basic gist of that is that our options are going to proliferate. We may have a lot of different directions that we could head in, and that might slow us down and maybe make us feel like a little stuck for a little bit. But the key with that, I think, is to be able to understand that we don't have to do everything all at once, that we don't have to pursue every pathway. We just have to kind of explore during that Jupiter in Gemini period and kind of understand that we don't have to commit right away. And we get more information, and then we process it, and then we let go of the things that aren't serving us or aren't for us, and then we breathe in more information, we process it, and let it go. I've talked about that breathing kind of process with the square between Gemini and Virgo. I have this square in my chart with Venus in Gemini squaring a Virgo stellium. I breathe in a lot of information, process it, try to make it useful, take out the nutrients, let go of the things that just aren't for me or don't make sense for that particular moment. And it's a continual process. It's not a one size fits all type of thing. It's you're not always done. It's a continual process, just like breathing. Okay, let's see. Oh, we've got more people commenting. Don says, I have 2 Maine Coons. They are so sweet. Marilyn is an absolute diva, and her brother's just a sweet boy. Yeah, I hear you. There's always usually one kind of like they play different roles when you get 2 of them together. Gandalf's the gremlin, and Radagast is just kind of the derpy go along sweet boy. I call him sweet boy. Gandalf is sweet too, but he's a little bit more, he's so smart that sometimes he gets a little anxious with things. He was hiding the other day because there were roofers that were making some noise, and it sounded like thunder to him, and he was like, oh, I gotta go. I don't know what that is. But he's smart enough to go to the lowest point in the house, where his brother, even in the middle of like almost a tornado-like condition, is like, yeah, this is fine. I'm just sitting around. He's completely nonplussed. So KP says, yes, Karen from Cleveland. Draft day used to be like a holiday here, LOL, but Haslam gave all our draft picks away for Deshaun Watson. Oh no. So just picks in the later rounds, but still going to watch for sure. That Haslam guy, he went ahead and bought part of the controlling interest in my favorite basketball team, the Milwaukee Bucks, and I'm a little bit nervous about it because he's made some questionable decisions. He's got a lot of money, so at least there's that as far as supporting the operating fees, but letting him run things is a little bit, that trade for Watson was not so great. And what we were talking about with Ben Roethlisberger earlier, like Deshaun Watson's gone down that path as well, like as far as like being of a highly questionable character. And, it's one thing, well, there's no excuse for any of that kind of behavior from either one of them. But the double whammy with Deshaun Watson is that he really hasn't performed that well on the field either. So I feel for you over there, Karen, not having any draft picks and also having to deal with Deshaun Watson. But you got some other cool dudes over there. Jerome Ford's pretty cool. You got is Kareem Hunt still over there? Myles Garrett's fun to watch. You got Amari Cooper. There's people to cheer for. All right. Let's see. So those are kind of the 30,000 foot viewpoint things regarding our month. Now, if we go through it a little bit in more depth, what we're going to do is we're going to zoom out and then we're going to start zooming in. So let's talk about lunations. So on the 1st of May, we have the last quarter moon, which is a square between the sun and the moon at 11 degrees of Aquarius, and that's squaring the 11-degree Taurus sun. So that could be something where we're trying to get in touch with our generosity, our giving and receiving. There could be, the Taurus too is a lot about giving and receiving benefits. And Aquarius too is really about transitioning from one state to the next, one state of mind, one state of, one shore to the next. So there might be some tension between those two things around the last quarter moon. And of course, this is the last quarter moon related to the full moon in Scorpio cycle. So keep in mind those things might be connected. On the 7th, I think that there's a few days that are really important. May the 7th, I think, is a really important day because it's the new moon in Taurus at 18 degrees of Taurus. And it also is a point in the cycle where we are releasing Jupiter from the milder malefic enclosure that Saturn and Mars were creating for Jupiter via a sextile ray. And I'll explain that when we get to that new moon. I'll show you. But it's basically like something was held in check for a period of time. Like, for example, I've been going through changing my diet because I had a realization around the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that I might have some digestive issues that, present like IBS or something like that. And I started experimenting with eliminating foods from my diet, like garlic and onions are the particular triggers for me. And eliminating those foods completely eliminated a lot of the pain that I've been experiencing. And trying to understand what other foods might be triggering some of those symptoms is a process that I've been going through while Jupiter's through that malefic enclosure. It's like you're not quite to the other side of things, but you have a really good idea of how you can get there. And that creates a need for patience and a need for experimentation. I do think once we get to that new moon, though, in Taurus, I think we're going to be ready to just feel a lot better. And we're going to get some of the things that we need. We're going to feel like we have a new routine. We have a new rhythm. And a lot of it is through letting go of the challenging things that we were hanging on to in our life previously. On the 15th of May, there's a first quarter moon at 25 degrees of Leo, squaring the third decan Taurus sun. So to be able to make a new start, we may have to swallow a little bit of our pride and maybe understand which hills we want to defend and which ones we want to release to be able to remedy some past mistakes. Like this is with all of the conjunctions with the sun and Uranus and Venus and Uranus, Mercury and Uranus coming together, it's all in the third decan of Taurus. So a lot of the changes that the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction started may be continued on in other areas of our life throughout May, remedying old mistakes. And I'll show you the slides for that. On the 23rd of May, we have a full moon in the first 10 degrees of Sagittarius, 2 degrees of Sagittarius. So the sun will have moved into Gemini by then, and we will see a proliferation of options, which may make us feel a little bit stuck. And at some point, we have to take some actions. And the first decan of Sagittarius says, stop thinking about it, just do it. Like it's about movement, speed, sharing our enthusiasm. So that may be a moment where we might desire to keep exploring, but there might be something requiring us to just get on with it and move towards our goal and move towards a target. And finally, there's another last quarter moon in this month on the 30th of May at 9 degrees of Pisces. So that'll be sort of maybe a potential conflict between the head and the heart, where we are feeling like we are trying to figure out what we are doing that brings us a sense of meaning. And oftentimes we can overthink those things. Sometimes the conflict between the head and the heart can pull us away from a sense of empowerment and meaning. So we'll have to work through that and maybe shift some of our beliefs so that we can explore some of these new options. Ingresses, that's a fancy word for a planet moving into a new sign. So we have Mercury moving out of Aries into Taurus on the 15th. We have the Sun moving into Gemini on the 20th. Venus moves into Gemini on the 23rd, and then Jupiter, of course, moves into Gemini. That's the big ingress of the month on the 25th. So keep that on your radar as far as when these planets will shift, because they're going to bring new awarenesses of different topics within your life. Let's see if I can get that. There we go. Okay. So those are our lunations. We just talked about our ingresses. Now let's talk about solar phases. Solar phases are relationships with planets and the sun, and sometimes with the nodes. I include some of the nodal relationships within this category as well. One thing to keep in mind is that there was one solar phase that I missed from April, and that is Jupiter going under the beams of the sun on the 28th, which is this upcoming Sunday. So I wanted to make you aware of that because it's going under the beams of the sun, getting ready for that new start. So in addition to being in that malefic enclosure, Jupiter is going to now be under the beams of the sun at the beginning of May. So this might be a moment where Jupiter feels tired, like where there's topics in our life related to, especially to Pisces and Sagittarius, that are going through a renewal, and we may have to be patient with that process. The ancient astrologers compared a planet going into the beams of the sun as a person taking to their sickbed, like feeling ill, and then maybe receiving treatment, medicine, etc., getting what they need when the planet conjoins the sun, all of the old form getting burned away, and then as it rises from its sickbed and emerges from the beams, it's healthy. There's a new start. It's a new phase. Okay, so we want to pay attention to that. We have the sun conjoining Uranus on the 13th at 23 degrees of Taurus. Could be a really important breakthroughs and awarenesses, especially in the Leo area of our chart via Taurus. On the 18th, we have the Jupiter cazimi, the sun conjoining Jupiter at 28 degrees of Taurus. That period of time between the 13th and the 18th is when we have the sun in benefic enclosure. So it's kind of bookmarked by the sun conjoining Uranus and the sun conjoining Jupiter. So those events will be connected. I'll try to contextualize it and break it down for you. But that could be a really fortunate period of time where we are really making progress and fixing some things within our life. On the 19th, the day after the Jupiter cazimi, Mars is conjoining the North Node. And the North Node, that's going to happen at 14 degrees of Aries. North Node, it tries to increase things. It is a hungry serpent, demon, dragon, etc. in Eastern mythos. And it's something where we have difficulty getting it satisfied. So we may be very much desiring taking action, an independent action, and making declarative statements about who and what we are. And we have to, it could be a really powerful moment for that, but we also have to be careful that we don't overdo it. Sometimes when we have a planet conjoining the North Node, we're driven to increase the significations of that particular planet to the point where it could get us into trouble, where we might be getting too attached to that energy. And I'm a proponent of balance, and this might be one where we're not feeling as balanced, where we're really just like, I want to do what I want to do, and I don't care who I hurt or what gets in my way. And that is one thing that I think that's one particular moment that I want to highlight that could be a challenging point. And then finally, at the very beginning of June, Mercury is going to move under the beams of the sun. And I included it because it's happening right as the month is ending. So the Mercury goes under the beams at 26 degrees of Taurus. And if you are familiar with that set of degrees, that's around the fixed star Algol. So it's a challenging fixed star that could cause us to have some really deep emotions that arise from the surface or from the deep. And we have to be careful to stay centered and balanced around that period of time. And some of that might be connected to Mars moving over the North Node as well. Finally, we have out-of-bounds planets, where a planet is moving outside the normal range of declination of the sun. So that is the how high or low that the sun would rise in relationship to the ecliptic over the course of a year. And really, when we only have the moon moving out of bounds this month. So the moon is out of bounds from May the 8th to May the 13th, and then again from May the 23rd to May the 28th. Oftentimes, a planet that is out of bounds is acting outside of the rules, the normal rules of society. Doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad time. It just means that there is a more extreme essence of that particular planet. It's more concentrated and it's not being mitigated by like social expectation. So oftentimes when the moon is out of bounds, we might feel a little tired. Our bodies might be pushed to extremes. Our emotions might swing a little more wildly. So understanding when those periods are happening can help us to give us a little bit more space. Okay, so that's our moon out of bounds. All right, I'm going to go back to chat, check in with all of you here. KP says, yes, Sag rising, staying positive. Browns fans know the drill. Oh, Karen. I was a Milwaukee Bucks fan, or I am a Milwaukee Bucks fan, and they were basically the Cleveland Browns of the NBA for a long period of time, where they had incompetent ownership, and they were just middling, every year after year after year. And they finally sold the team, and that really changed their fortunes, and they won a championship. They got extremely lucky to draft a guy named Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is a transcendent player, the Greek freak. So hang in there. Even long-suffering fan bases, every once in a while, there's a breakthrough. So maybe it's one of these Uranus Sun conjunctions. Maybe it's the Uranus Venus or Mercury conjunction. You never know. You never know. Yeah, Charting with Liv says Algol. Yes, Algol is a challenging placement. It can be very protective, but it is also associated with, Chinese astrologers called it the star of piled up corpses. So that should tell you something. It's related to Medusa and the severed head of Medusa, which also is a warning for us not to lose our heads. There's more feminist takes on the Algol myth, where they speak of Medusa becoming empowered by Athena, I believe, to be able to protect her from her attackers in the temples where she experienced a sexual assault. So think about some of those themes that could come to the fore. But I think just from a practical standpoint, understanding how to set healthy boundaries with our own emotions as well as with the emotions of others can be really healthy. I think that we want to make sure we're staying centered, we're staying grounded, Taurus, grounded energy. And I think that that's going to help us navigate when we have planets conjoining that particular fixed star. Okay. How are we doing? We doing good? So we're going to talk about Sun and Taurus. I'm just excited to see all of you joining. We have 50 people joining us live here today, which is super exciting. I've only seen a couple of you in the chat. If you're lurking in the chat, it's football Christmas. Tell me who you're rooting for. Oh man, I'm going to be insufferable to the non-sports fans today, but I don't care. I just love it. And I hope my enthusiasm is contagious, even if it's not for something that's, totally in your wheelhouse. Just the energy of passion and enthusiasm, I think it's nice to be able to share that. All right, so let's talk about the sun in the second decan of Taurus. I'm going to bring up my slides from the Decans of Taurus webinar, which is on sale currently. And you can see here that we have the Six of Pentacles represented on the screen with a figure that is giving out alms to the poor. So this decan is about giving and receiving of benefits. So we can play either role in this particular area of the zodiac, if we have placements there or whatnot, or if we're experiencing themes related to this. There's also themes of consistency and being able to show up for life consistently, do the work that we need to do, and then let nature take over and complete the process. So knowing when to work, knowing when to rest, those are Taurus 2 themes. And that's going to be what we're starting our month out in May with. So generosity and altruism. This is a lunar decan. So I'm familiar with this territory. This is the decan that my moon is in. So this is a place of the exaltation of the moon, but also the moon's face. So it has the ability to bring material processes to fruition. It's a fertile place, so it's a place where you can create something tangible and practical. So generosity and altruism, establishing a consistent rhythm. That comes from the connection with the Horai, which are the goddesses of the seasons. So that speaks to everything having its own time frame and its own timetable. Tiferet and Asya Tiferet is the Kabbalistic tree of life Sephira, which is all about balance and centeredness. So this is about balancing our material energy, resources, etc. Balance of body and spirit. Procreative unions. Austin Coppock, in his very excellent book, 36 Faces, calls it this decan a linga yoni, which is a fertility symbol. And this is a time of year where the fields are ready to be planted. We've removed the obstacles. We made our plans in Taurus 1. We took the rocks out of the fields, and now the fields are ready. They've been heated by the sun. They're fructified and ready to support the seeds that we want to plant. So the process of planting seeds is supported during Taurus 2. Appreciating the present moment. This is important. I was going for a nice walk with my partner the other day and just appreciating the eastern redbud trees in a metro park that we visited. And it was a nice moment of just saying, man, I'm just happy to be where I am in this moment. A lot of times when we're astrologers or diviners or people who pay attention to symbols, we're always thinking about the future. We're always thinking about something that's way off in the future. And being able to be present in the moment so that we don't lose ourselves in anticipation, but also in anxiety, is really important. I think Taurus can really teach us that. So slow and steady manifestation is also an interesting theme of this particular decan. Just being able to take your time, pace yourself. We do that on this channel, friends. We sometimes go 3 or 4 hours. Like, there's an endurance to it, but it's also allowing us to get depth. It's allowing us to provide context. And it's not for everyone. Some folks are wanting to get their information quicker, and they don't necessarily need all that context. But for those of us who enjoy slow and steady wins the race, Taurus 2 is in support of that. So questions you can ask yourself during this period of time from the end of April to May the 10th. What seeds are you sowing? What routines will support your growth? Can you work with the natural cycles to create fertility? Okay, working with nature rather than against it. That's an important thing to understand with astrology too, is working with the cycles and working with the moment that is important for the conditions that are supporting certain actions in that moment. Can you work with natural cycles to create fertility, and what virtues practice over time will lead to success? That's important too. Having this decan on my midheaven, it's instructive for what types of actions will create success in my career. So wherever you have Taurus 2 in your life, or Taurus in general, consistency is being asked for. So for me, I show up each week, I do the work that I do, and then I show up again the next week, and I do the work that I do, and I keep showing up and showing up and showing up. That's the way that I've been able to create momentum within my life. It's not an overnight success story. It's something that where you're building something solid over time. So don't expect to rush a process during Taurus, especially during this decan, which is very fixed. Okay, it's slow. It's slow moving, but it's this type of slow growth that will last the test of time. And then finally, what tangible achievements have you manifested? Okay, acknowledging, where you've come and who your helpers have been. And then how can you share your abundance? That's one of the secrets of any type of manifestation work, is generosity. Being able to be a channel for material, spiritual resources, information, etc., helps it flow through you rather than having you hoard it. Okay, I've learned this the hard way. Anytime I've hoarded knowledge, information, resources, it's led to those resources drying up. But when I share them, when I am open about it, it allows the universe to continue to utilize me as a channel for those resources. Same thing with money. Money is a flow. It's an energy flow. So if you're feeling, I don't know, like you're lacking, try to help someone out. Try to give, and then feel good about that, and allow the universe to replenish you. I mean, I really do feel like that's a very important lesson to learn, especially with this decking. Okay. Stellar Renditions checking in with Carolina Panthers, Hornets, and Heels fan. All right. Carolinas are checking in. Stella, who do you got? What? So you got Bryce Young. Your owner is a lot like the Cleveland's owner, unfortunately. They went and traded the number 1 pick last year to the Bears, one of the teams that I'm not a fan of because they're rivals of the Packers, and basically handed the Bears the number 1 pick overall and picked Bryce Young instead of C.J. Stroud, who had an incredible rookie year. Not saying Bryce Young couldn't turn out. It's just that he had a really difficult experience his rookie year. And the owner is fairly impatient, so he's kind of anti-Taurus too. I wonder what his chart looks like. But the Panthers, do they even have a first-round pick this year? I think they have an early second-round pick. One name to put on your radar, Stella, is Xavier Legette, who is a wide receiver. I believe he's from South Carolina. I believe he's a Gamecock. And he's a strong, fast dude, and he's had a number of meetings with the Carolina Panthers, and potentially watch him get drafted by them with pick number 33 in the second round. So you heard it here first. You probably didn't hear it here first, but I thought I would share that. KP says, yes, your encouraging words are like nectar to a Browns fan. Woohoo, fired up. Nice. Oh, I'm so happy to be able to share this day with all of you. And thank you, people in the chat, for humoring me with this. Like I said, I know this isn't everyone's cup of tea, but I just appreciate you letting me go on this little journey today with the draft. Yeah, thanks for the hearts there, Tracy. Bonnie says, my natal Saturn is 20 degrees Taurus. I feel that deck in 8th house, no less. Yeah, we'll break down Taurus 3 in a second here, but I kind of feel like, and I could be wrong on this, like maybe there is a transition between the degrees, you know, like depending on what I don't know, what systems we use or whatnot, that maybe there's a little bit of overlap around that particular place. People often ask me, is 20 degrees this decade or that decade? I guess I would consider 20 degrees Taurus 3. But again, a lot of these themes are running throughout all of the sign of Taurus. So it's like a narrative through Taurus. So some of the themes can overlap for sure, because we see the beginning, middle, and ending of a specific process. Oh, Tracy, thank you for the super sticker, my friend. Appreciate your generosity and showing up in the chat each week. Appreciate you, and just wishing your little Leo rising happy birthday coming up here. Thanks for being so awesome, Spencer. Thank you, Tracy, for being awesome. Appreciate you. VF is here, says, I'm sowing zinnias. Nice. That's going to be a perfect activity for Taurus season there, VF. I'm getting really excited about my garden too. I just did a pollinator habitat in my yard. I tore up a lot of turf grass and planted a lot of native flowers and grasses to Michigan. And I did it in the fall last year, so I wasn't able to see them grow as big as they could have. And this is going to be the first spring that I'm going to be able to see all these grow into their full forms. And I am here for it. It is giving me life going outside and seeing the fruits of my labors. It's really exciting. And I'm a huge fan of just touching soil. You know, if you're feeling anxious, you're feeling like the world's too much, just go outside for a little bit. Breathe in some fresh air. You know, appreciate the beauty of a flower or a tree or the birds or the animals around you. I mean, there's nothing like it to me. That's why I do a lot of what I do, is just to be able to afford free time to connect with nature and to just be in the moment and connected with that natural space. Yeah, Bonnie says, good point about 20 being deck in 3. Again, there's overlap with that though. So, you're not, if some of those themes are resonating, again, it definitely could work. Bonnie says it's always like a dial turning up or down, not a switch flicking on or off. Yeah, I agree with that. We're always kind of making those little adjustments here and there. And I'm not a firm believer in hard and fast boundaries in these things. You know, think about these themes blending into one another. So that might be another reason why this is really still touching a nerve. But wait till you hear Taurus 3 and see if compare the themes of Taurus 2 to Taurus 3 and see if Taurus 3 resonates even further. Yeah, thank you, Tracy. Uranus Ascending is here. Kathy has entered the building. What's up, Kathy? Stopping in from Aurora, Illinois. Are you a Bears fan, Kathy? Because this is a big day for Bears fans. You have the #1 pick overall, probably picking Caleb Williams, who is a transcendent quarterback prospect from the University of Southern California. He's a Scorpio. I'm a little nervous because he looks pretty good, and he looks like Patrick Mahomes, and I'm a Packers fan. So our one big advantage has been our quarterback play for the last 30 years, and we have another good one in Jordan Love, but the tides could be turning with the Bears, and they have #9 overall too, and they might be picking. I've heard rumors of this guy named Rome Odunze, who's a stud wide receiver. They could go defense, who knows? But we'll see. Yeah, VF has given me the absolutely on the gardening relaxation, absolutely. Okay, friends, let's keep going. So now that we understand okay. All right, so I have to acknowledge this. Of no Bears. We're from Michigan. Husband is Lions all the way. All right, I'm glad to hear that, Kathy, because I can get on board with, supporting the Lions. I'm here in, Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, Michigan, right outside of Detroit, and I have a soft spot in my heart for the Lions. I didn't feel as threatened by them for many years, and I like seeing the hometown crowd here, enjoying a little bit of success. If the Packers couldn't win, I was kind of rooting for the Lions, and they have a bright future ahead of them as well with Dan Campbell. They've got great wide receivers. They've got Aiden Hutchinson on defense. They just got new uniforms, which are throwbacks. It's exciting times in Detroit. So the draft is actually in Detroit this year, which is exciting. So give your husband a Lions high five for me. They just signed Penei Sewell, their offensive lineman, to a record-breaking contract, and also re-signed a very talented wide receiver named Amon-Ra St. Brown. So lots of positive things happening in Detroit. Okay, let's bring the chart up, and let's take a look at what we're experiencing. So I'm going to move this to about noon each day so that you can kind of see the aspects that I'm going to be putting on the screen. Okay, the beginning of the month, we have a Venus-Pluto square. Okay, we're starting off with the last quarter moon, right? So we identified that in our big picture thoughts. You can see here that the moon is squaring the sun from Aquarius at about 11 degrees. It's a little bit past it at noon in this chart. And we also have both Venus here at 2 degrees of Taurus squaring Pluto. Okay. And let's see. I'll make this a little clearer for us. So here's the sun. Here is the moon. And then we'll make the Venus-Pluto square purple. How about that? Okay. So a couple squares to start the month out, right? What I will say is that I think that a lot of the challenges that we've been experiencing with our relationships, with our ability to attract or repel, etc., a lot of that has had to do with Venus moving through Aries. Not a comfortable place for Aries. It's a place where we might be a little bit too over enthusiastic about our sporting teams or whatnot. Although I will say, in my defense, Venus right now, as we record this, is in Aries 3, which is its own face. And that's really about winning people over with passion, humor, and charisma. So Venus does have a little bit of boost through the end of April, but it's going to be empowered when it moves into Taurus. It's going to be able to be a little bit more patient. It's It's going to be able to have access to receiving the resources that it needs to build a stable future. And in the beginning of the month, it's going to make a whole sign square and an aspectual square to Pluto. So we may be taking stock of our resources. We may be taking like stock of our seeds. We may be taking stock of our pots or whatever we have to be able to plant that garden, right? But our resources may be running into some systemic challenges with the Pluto square. You know, the Pluto is hanging out in the first decan of Aquarius right now, which is a place that's related to maybe experiencing a conflict and a defeat or an injustice. And that's important, injustice, because the spirit of that decan is Dike. And we may be voluntarily desiring to go off into the fringe of society and saying, I don't want to be a part of this system that's unfair anymore. And I think that could lead to some tension between our ability to plant our seeds and to understand how to create future abundance and fertility. Now, that being said, this is more of a practical versus idealistic challenge. And when we have a last quarter moon, like we do here at the beginning of the month, we may also be experiencing just a little bit of an existential crisis about moving forward with our abundance creation. Because there's a super powerful new moon shortly after this for creating abundance. But before we are able to do that wholeheartedly, we may have to start shifting some of our ideas about what is or is not possible. We might have to start shifting some of our ideals about what is or isn't ethical, what is or isn't fair. You've all witnessed me go through this on this channel every single week. Like, I tend to be someone who gives a lot of my time away. I don't have great time boundaries. But I've gone through these existential crises publicly about paywalls and Patreons and all of that thing. And trust me, we're getting closer. But this is going to be an important moment for all of us trying to decide what we are willing to do to create abundance, and how does that fit in with the bigger picture of our life? And how does it fit in with how we view our role within society? I think that's another thing that can either help or hinder us when we're trying to create material security in our life, is seeing ourselves a certain way. So this might be a good time to try to get some objectivity about who and what you are within your social communities. I think that the other possibility with this Venus-Pluto square and the square between the sun and the moon here, there could be some social events that are triggering a little bit of fear around scarcity. And I say that because the first decan of Taurus is all about getting to work and planning because you're afraid that you're going to be destitute or poor. So this moment might be the impetus, okay, that gets us moving, that helps us overcome inertia. So maybe there's something that's out of your control, that's a social issue, a social challenge, where you say, oh my God, I need to really just start working that field. I need to get up off my butt, up off the couch and just get outside, get my hands dirty, make a plan. And if I want to have future abundance and fertility, go 4 o'clock. And sometimes they're friction moments. Like squares like this are of the nature of Mars, according to Hellenistic, thema mundi aspect theory. So Mars is often the thing that goads us to get going. So just hang in there at the beginning of the month and take it as a signal that it's time to get going. I've got to make preparations for that fertile moment of the new moon coming. Okay. So that is the first. Let's keep rolling. Let's keep going. So if we go forward to the third, the next non-lunar aspect we have is a sextile between Mars and Pluto. So this might be the moment where we had that realization And now we're maybe trying to take some action in regards to those particular realizations. So this might be something where we are saying, okay, I understand that I need to sever and separate from some kind of collective experience or collective belief system to go my own way. That's really what Mars, this is a very martial decan in the first 10 degrees of Aries, where it says, I need to differentiate. I need yang force to get me through the surface so that I can start spreading my leaves and start growing flowers and start being part of an ecosystem and a community. I'm going to reiterate this again. Aries is one stop on the celestial wheel. It's one energy and phase, but we don't have to get stuck there. We don't have to, all of you Aries folks out there, you don't have to be lonely. You don't have to completely be like on an island. Your energy is needed in certain situations, but once that plant bursts through the surface, it starts expanding its leaves. It starts shooting roots down into the ground to stabilize it. It creates flowers that the bees visit and pollinate, Gemini, right? And it starts to fruit, Cancer. So it's all part of a process. And this might be the process where you're saying, I've got to use some yang force to eliminate the barriers to creating abundance. Okay, so that is the third. Let's keep going. Now we're going to get to, on the 7th, here we are getting to our new moon, our new moon. So here's our new moon. I feel like I should circle this new moon in green. This looks like a very green new moon. This looks like one of the most positive new moons of the year, in my opinion, for a number of reasons. First of all, the sun is going to make a sextile with Saturn earlier in the day, before the moon becomes new. Now, you heard me previously mention the malefic enclosure. Now, really what that entails was Saturn casting its ray on this side of Jupiter, right here, okay? And then Mars casting its ray on this side of Jupiter, enclosing it. Now that the sun has made the sextile, it is breaking it up, okay? It is said to be kind of like, right here, it's saying, okay, I'm in between that ray, and I'm trying to break it up and help, hopefully. So I think that's a really important moment for Jupiter significations that where we've been trying to remedy old mistakes potentially, or we've been trying to fix an old situation that had fallen into disrepair. So this is not only an important new moon regarding creating abundance, but it's also the moment where I feel like the Jupiter significations are allowed to start moving forward, potentially. Other than that, I mean, the new moon itself is sextile Saturn, so we might be able to bring in some new commitments potentially. In this case, we may be coming to terms with what is possible and what isn't. I think that Saturn in Pisces 2, the second decan of Pisces, is asking us to be realistic about what our dreams are and what we are capable of and what we aren't. This is going to become particularly important when all of those planets start to move into Gemini. Because when the planets start moving into Gemini, they're going to be in a whole sign square with Saturn in that decan of Pisces. And we're going to want to do everything. We're going to want to spread ourselves too thin. There's going to be a lot of options that come up towards the end of this month, of May, and into the beginning of June. And Saturn in that square says, slow your roll. Don't overestimate your ability. Don't overestimate your energy. There's lots of stories in that middle decan of Pisces that speak towards tragedy that happens from people who are trying to do something that is beyond their capabilities, particularly Phaethon, who was trying to drive the chariot of the sun and was shot out of the sky by Zeus and drowned in the river Eridanus. So pace yourself, okay? Especially as we get into Gemini season. Luna Storm is here. What's up, Luna Storm? Nice to see you, friend. I love your unicorn avatar there. Uranus Ascending says, yay, son, given Saturn and Mars the what for? Yeah, right? Yeah, I'm excited. This new moon I've been waiting for a long time. Not only because it's, for selfish purposes, it's on my midheaven and conjoining my moon, but it is a moment, I think, where Mars is in its own domicile in Aries. It's in its own face. It's in its own triplicity. It's well, wait a second. Let me double check that. I know Mars is, no, check that. Mars is in its own domicile and face, which still gives it a ton of juice for moving forward and individuating. The moon, sorry, this is what was in my notes. The moon is in its exaltation, its triplicity, and its own face. That is a powerful, powerful moment for manifestation. The moon is a planet associated with the physical world, with embodiment. So this part of the zodiac, the middle decan of Taurus, is one of the most lunar, one of the most fertile in the entire zodiac. So when we're talking about wanting to plant seeds, this is the kairos opportune moment to be able to move forward and create a firm, stable foundation if we are heading in the right direction. Okay, so powerful moment. The other good news about this particular new moon, and I'll make sure that I've labeled this. There we go. It's hosted by Venus in its own domicile. It's co-present with Venus and Taurus. That's amazing. That means that this new moon doesn't have to ask any other planet besides its own host that has the same agenda for any resources. And the resources that it's being provided for are abundant. So let's say we had this new moon, but Venus was in, I don't know, Virgo. Maybe not Virgo, but let's say it was in Scorpio. Like, that's a place that it's not super happy being in. That would be Venus trying to provide the resources of death and release in a time period that is normally associated with growth and birth. In this case, Venus is in the place that it loves to be in, to be able to bring everything together to create that new abundance and growth and fertility, etc. So Mars is in good shape. Venus is in excellent shape. The moon is in excellent shape. Jupiter is just coming off of that conjunction with Uranus and is being released from the malefic enclosure. Saturn isn't creating problems for this new moon. It's sextile. So there's a harmonious conversation between realizing our limits, hopefully. Okay. Again, that could shift as we move into Gemini, so be careful with that. But this moment is really important. All right, so that's our new moon in Taurus. Let's keep going. I'm going to look in the chat here. Luna Storm says, I was surprised to see a Thursday broadcast. Yes. Luna Storm says, are you going to talk about any good picks in the upcoming draft? Where have you been, Luna Storm? That's the whole reason I'm doing the Thursday broadcast, so that I can make sure that I have my schedule free to just nerd out on the draft. We've been talking about the draft kind of intermittently, Luna Storm, but throw in the chat, what team are you rooting for? Tell me again where you're stopping in from and what team you're a fan of. I have a vague memory of you being a Seahawks fan, but I could be wrong. Because I have thoughts about all of these teams. I've been doing my homework. I'm going to be watching the draft tonight. Maybe I'll even, if there's enough people interested in this, honestly, maybe I'll go live tomorrow or something and just talk about how the first round went, and we'll just specifically talk draft the whole time. If there's enough people that ask me to do that, I'll do it. But we'll see. Yeah, I did that a little bit earlier. Yeah. Don says, do it. It would be fun, wouldn't it? That's what I'd prefer to talk about today. But I want to be of good service. I want to prepare you all for May. Yeah, so that's what we're doing today. Let's see. It says, you are right. Seahawks, we need help. I can't believe I remember that. That's a little bit wild. I have a sticky brain for certain details. So, Luna Storm. Let me think about Seahawks real quick. Thanks for your patience today if you're just here for the astrology. And hit those super chats if you really feel how to support this work. Seahawks have a big transition going on. They got a quarterback that they had last year with Geno Stone, right? Who is an older quarterback. So they need a succession plan with quarterback. there's been they traded Russ. They traded Russ Wilson, which ended up bringing them a lot of draft capital. They drafted a really good cornerback. I can't exactly remember. They're in the middle of the first round somewhere. So trying to figure out what they drafted Jackson Smith in Jigbo last year, wide receiver from Ohio State. He had an okay rookie year, but I think he might break out this year. Hopefully, second year for wide receivers is generally pretty good. He's an Aquarius, so it may take him a little bit of time, but once he establishes himself, he might be ready to go. Geno Stone's a Libra, so the two of them probably have some good connection. I'm not sure what I have seen potential like defensive linemen, like edge rushers potentially for the Seahawks. Maybe a cornerback. I don't know if there's another corner that they might need. Keep your eyes on, if they do go corner, keep your eyes on people like Terry and Arnold, Quinyon Mitchell from Alabama and the University of Toledo, respectively. Terry and Arnold has a really great chart. He's an Aries sun, born on a 22 day, and Quinyon Mitchell's a Cancer. So, yeah, check it out. Bonnie says, I could so nerd out about the astrology of the draft. Hurry. Okay, you guys are convincing me to do this. I think I'm going to do this tomorrow. Depending on how much sleep I get tonight, it'll just be like I'll go live. I don't know what time. Maybe it'll be 1 o'clock again, 2 o'clock, probably 2 o'clock. But that would be fun to kind of break it all down. Yes, do sports astrology. Do it. I'm here for the astrology too. We lost a lot of good players and coaches. Yeah, that's right. That's the big change over in Seattle. Pete Carroll retired or went up into the front office. So there's a big change with coach. That's it. It's all coming back to me now. You all got Mike McDonald from the Baltimore Ravens, who is a defensive genius over there and starting a new era for the Seahawks. So I think you got a really good coach. He's a Cancer sun. So yeah, I think you're in good hands. So don't worry about it. Pete was great, but I think Mike's going to do a good job. Yeah. Okay. So I love this. Sports astrology is still astrology. Lots we can learn. Yeah, we'll do it. I'll commit to it. Just be forgiving with me if I've stayed up until 1 a.m. and I'm like half there. but I think that I could get excited for this type of thing. I'm already just buzzing today over excitement about unwrapping the presents under the tree. And of course, there's 3 days of this. Today is only the first round. Tomorrow is round 2 and 3. And the Packers have 4 picks in the rounds 2 and 3. And then Saturday is rounds 4 through 7. So there's tons to talk about over the next couple days. Okay, let's keep going. I got more draft research to do. So let's get through this astrology thing, right? Oh, God. No, just kidding. Okay, so that's really the end of the sun in Taurus 2 is that new moon. The moon will be out of bounds from May the 8th to May the 13th. So keep that in mind, is that we are after the new moon, right after the new moon, we might be feeling a little bit like going to extremes with our body. So we have to pay attention to that. So now I'm going to bring back up the Taurus Decans webinar, and I'm going to move over to Taurus 3. So Bonnie, this one's for you, like for analyzing that Decan for your particular natal placement. In Taurus 3, we see the 7 of Pentacles, and we see someone who has gone through the planting process and is now evaluating the work that has been done. And you can see in this card that part of this vegetation is brown. Now that's a reference to the potato famines of the 1840s in Ireland, which the author of these, or the artist, was very familiar with. What's her name? Pixie Coleman Smith. She is from England and would have been young enough or old enough, I guess, at that time to remember that particular experience, or at least have heard about it. Okay. And so there's something that's threatening our fertility in this Decan, like a blight, like mold. Maybe our harvest isn't as fertile as we were hoping. And oftentimes it's through no fault of our own. Oftentimes it's through being humbled in the face of nature. So themes of floods, droughts, pestilence, natural disasters, humility in the face of nature. Those are themes that come up in Taurus 3. And this is the reason I've been talking about Uranus in Taurus 3 as unexpected weather events and natural disasters. So I think that that is one potential challenge in May, is that we have a lot of planets coming together with Uranus in Taurus. So I do think that the frequency of climate change influenced weather patterns has made this particular season more unpredictable and is going to require us to make adjustments. I know for in our personal life, we're going through the process of potentially rewiring our house to be able to support a generator, right? We've been saving up for a generator. All of you have gone through that journey with me. We lost power for an entire week last year in February with a nasty storm, and we lost heat during that period of time. And at that period, we were like, hey, we need to start socking some dough away so that doesn't happen again, because that's very dangerous. And if you lose heat in the summer, that also can be very, very dangerous. And I have a feeling, I just have a gut feeling, this isn't based on anything in particular, but I have a gut feeling this summer is going to be a hot one. And I think that we got a little bit of a reprieve last year because of, I don't know if it was El Nino or El Nina, but it was a little bit milder than a lot of people were expecting. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I think that our new reality is dealing with things like forest fires, floods, dealing with extreme heat, drought, etc. And we're going to have to make adjustments as a society to be able to become resilient within those changes. So I think that there is a resiliency in Taurus 3 that is important. It's a Saturn decan. And of course, Saturn gives us harsh truths, harsh realities. It encourages us to be realistic. And to have patience. So there may be some things that we have to do during Taurus 3 that weren't necessarily our fault, that weren't in our control, that might be forces that are bigger than us that cause us to submit and surrender to that process. Enduring material hardship, they called Netzach and Atzia, the Sephira, related to the Kabbalistic tree of life. Assessing efforts and remediating mistakes. Atonement and surrender to a higher power. Faith in the process. The whole surrendering to a higher power part is related to a spirit in this decan called the Litai. The Litai were these hobbled old women that followed behind a demon or a figure called Eight, which translates to rashness or ruin. So through maybe doing something rashly in the past, we may have created less than ideal circumstances in our present. And by atoning for that mistake and remediating that mistake, we might be able to move forward, okay, and create more options for ourselves. Here's an example. I've been talking about my Jupiter-Uranus realization. We just had a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus 3 in the past week. We may have had a fortuitous realization that will allow us to take actions, Jupiter, to meet our future and create good fortune. But a lot of it is about remediating a problem that we've been experiencing for a long time. So in my case, I've had some digestive issues that have increased in their severity since I've, gotten further into middle age. And I found some really interesting information and have been experimenting with eliminating. This is another theme with Taurus 3, eliminating problems, with eliminating some foods that gave me problems. And it's been a revelation. It's giving me more energy. It's making me feel, anytime you eliminate a source of pain, the vitality just fills you, So think about that with this part of Taurus is how can you deal with things that have been challenges that will actually, when you remove those challenges, you're actually going to fill yourself with vitality and with life. And it may take discipline. Like there are certain foods that I really, really like that I just can't eat, anymore. The onions and garlic make things delicious. And we're finding workarounds. My partner is an amazing chef and very innovative with cooking. We found some brands that help replace some of those things. And I've gotten a lot of great advice from some friends and from some clients and community members here as well. So I think that there could be, that doesn't have to be your exact situation, But I want you to think about where there might be something in your life where you are trying to eliminate something that's been bothering you for a long time. And it could be through actions in your past, or it could just be through something that is not necessarily any fault of your own. You know what's funny about this decan and this problem I've been going through? My father has the same issue. My grandmother had the same issue. It's a genetic thing. It's something I inherited through no fault of my own. It was something I had no control over, like my genetics and my ability to digest these particular substances. So take the self-blame out of some of these circumstances and try to work on the issue itself, okay? And there's going to be a highlight, a spotlight on some of these things, even in more depth as we get into Taurus 3. So Bonnie, I hope that's helpful for you. Yes, Bonnie's excited about the sports podcast. Good. Blowing my ever-loving mind with this. Yep. Okay, bye. So maybe this is more, maybe it feels a little bit more, even more resonant with Taurus 3, the end process of Taurus, okay? Good. I'm glad that you're finding some truth within that. Okay, so let's take a look at the chart again. Let's pull the chart up. And before we do dive into that, do me a huge favor, friends. Do me a huge favor. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Let's take a little stretch break before we dive into the astrology. It's Taurus season. We got to take care of our bodies. We got to move around a little bit. We got to dance. We got to shake it out, especially our hips. This is a great time to shake your hips out. And again, if you're here, you're enjoying this, the simplest and easiest thing you can do is make sure that you've hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel and to the newsletter. Go visit me at spencermichaud.com. Go follow me at Spencer Michaud on Instagram and Twitter and Threads. And if you have the means to do so, hit that super chat. It really does go a long way. I know that we have really some generous folks every week, so I appreciate all of you. And it's totally cool if you're not in position to do so. I'm just happy that you're here today. But again, those things really do help me keep the lights on. What's up, Julene? Julene, we're talking Astrology of May, and we're talking NFL Draft today. It's football Christmas. So Cardinals got the number 4 pick. We've been talking a lot about Marvin Harrison Jr., Julene, a transcendent wide receiver prospect. But I'm going to give you another name to think about. There's this other dude. His name is Malik Neighbors, and he is probably just as good as Marvin Harrison. So you could get a little bit of a surprise if you've been fixated on Marvin Harrison potentially. Malik Neighbors is awful, awful good. He is very fast. He reminds me of Jamar Chase. So either one of those guys would be great. Other thing, Julene, Cardinals are in a pole position to trade down and still get a great wide receiver for a team that wants to trade up for one of those quarterbacks. Watch out for the Vikings trading up or the Giants potentially. There's a lot that could happen at that 4 spot. And I think that either way, it's going to be good. Bonnie says, so glad I caught you. Headed off to a client top of the hour. Thank you. Go Dogs and go to good NFL teams. Oh, Bonnie, thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate you. And maybe we'll see you tomorrow during another live stream when we talk draft a little more. Dawn, thank you for the super sticker, my friend. Appreciate you. You're always so generous, and I appreciate your presence here today. We're rooting for the Dogs. We're rooting for the Crimson Tide. You know, I don't have any particular collegiate affiliation. I rooted for the Badgers when I was a kid, Wisconsin Badgers, since that was kind of around me. But I can appreciate all of those different college football programs, and I appreciate you supporting the channel today. Julian says, yes, draft today. I hope I don't miss our pick. I have a parent meeting for Keegan's team tonight. During the draft, Julian? It's football. You know, this is literally, you have a meeting for a football team. They aren't just having a draft party. You got a potential future NFL draft pick in your home. So Julian's got a offensive line, defensive line prospect. He's a big kid. He looks like he's a talented kid. And maybe he's got a future in the league. Who knows? Hopefully, he just has a future being a happy person and learning all sorts of cool lessons from just playing this beautiful sport. Go Cardinals. Keegan was gifted a pair of cleats yesterday from the Cardinals. Nice. Awesome. That's awesome, Julene. Well, I'm rooting for him. He seems like a good kid, and he's got a great mother supporting him. You know, you're doing a great job there, helping him out. And yeah, good luck with all of it. Okay, so we did our stretch break. Let's get back to it. And we'll talk more draft. I think we'll talk more draft tomorrow. I think we've established that there's enough interest in draft talk. And as you can see, it fires me up. So I could talk about it all afternoon. But let's talk Astrology of May here. So we're going back to Sun and Taurus 3. And we're going to move forward and work through some of these aspects through the second decan of Taurus. So we're going to start out with the 13th. And this is when things get fun. So first of all, on the 13th, we have the Sun in benefic enclosure. That is fun. I'm so glad I found this week when doing the astrology, because this is one we've spent a lot of time talking about malefic enclosures, where the Saturn and Mars come together, creating obstacles for planets. But it's equally fun when we see a planet being enclosed. Let's say we have blue for them. So there's the Sun, and here's Venus, okay, and there's Jupiter. See that? On either side of the Sun. And the Venus has moved past a sextile with Saturn, so that Saturn is not interfering within that anymore, okay? So there could be an argument made. I'm going to remove this here, but let's just make it green and we'll circle the whole thing. Okay. There is an argument that could be made that Uranus could be breaking up enclosures. I haven't necessarily found that to be the case from personal experience, but keep that in mind. That being said, there will be a short moment of time between the 17th and the 18th where that benefic enclosure gets much more poignant and is outside of the influence of Uranus, breaking it up in between. But regardless of Uranus's presence here, there's a lot going on that I think could be very positive. So first of all, Mercury leaves its shadow. So you could see Mercury here at about 28 degrees. That's where Mercury had retrograded back to 27 degrees in particular. And now it will be moving into new ground. So we've done the review process. We've understood what our particular statement of sorry, hold on one second. Okay. We understand our royal decrees, basically. We understand what we need to do to be able to attract the right type of support. And now we can move forward, especially in regards to the Gemini and Virgo areas of our chart, because Mercury is now traveling new ground and supporting those two areas of our life in that new ground that it's traveling. Sun and Uranus coming together. So you want to connect the Sun back to Leo. So this is one of the fundamental concepts of traditional astrology, is understanding that the planet in one particular sign is trying to provide resources for the topic associated with the country or land or temple that it rules. And Sun is the ruler of Leo. So this Uranus-Sun conjunction could have ramifications that are affecting our Leo topics. So for example, I'll just use myself as an example. I have Taurus in the 10th house. So some sort of realization or some sort of unexpected insight regarding my career could lead me to a better sense of self, okay, which is related to my first house. So I want you to practice connecting those things and saying, okay, the Taurus and the Leo topics are going to be connected here. There's going to be maybe some breakthrough, some insight, especially about remedying situations that had fallen either into disrepair, whether through your own rashness or through no fault of your own. Again, I think it's important to release personal guilt and shame with a lot of these things. A little bit of guilt is okay sometimes. I think that is it serves a social function. Like if we feel guilty for being a total jerk to someone, that maybe leads us to repentance or to fixing the situation. But when we self-eviscerate, that's one of my favorite words lately, is when we eviscerate ourselves or just completely like disembowel ourselves due to guilt or shame, etc. It doesn't serve anybody. It doesn't serve a purpose. It's just creating suffering within our life. So move forward with confidence after you've been able to surrender to the divine guidance that you might receive through this Sun-Uranus conjunction. And really, Venus is in a place where it's providing fertile resources. Jupiter is helping us take actions to remediate those previous mistakes. This to me is just a really beautiful moment where the good things in life will find us through our surrender and through the actions that we take that could lead to good fortune down the road. So this is also leading up to, so that's our Sun in benefic enclosure, the 13th through the 18th. Over the course of this period of time, we're also going to have Sun and Venus conjoining Uranus. I just went over the Sun conjoining Uranus. Venus conjoins Uranus a few days later on the 18th, at the end of the benefic enclosure of the Sun. Okay. When we move forward, let's move forward here. And there's a couple of the things that are happening. We have on the 15th, we have a square between the Sun and the Moon. Okay, so I want to make this a few hours earlier here so that you can kind of see it when it's in Leo. Okay, so here is the square earlier in the day on May 15th. And this is a place where we're seeing the Sun on Algol and the Moon in the third decan of Leo. Now, this is a first quarter moon, first quarter square. It's a little bit different than the last quarter, which is maybe an existential crisis that allows us to let go of something before a new start. This is the crisis of manifesting something and bringing something into being and bringing something into form. So we have an awareness of the results of our previous processes. We're trying to remediate old mistakes. But we have the Moon hanging out in a decan that is related to the Seven of Wands. So we just looked at the Seven of Pentacles, okay, evaluating. Seven of Wands shows a figure that's defending a hill, okay, against people who would usurp their position. So this might be a challenge of having a little bit of pride over something. Maybe there's something that gets ignited where you're saying, oh, I made this mistake, but I don't want to admit it. Like as a Leo sun, as a Leo rising, with the ascendant in this decan of Leo, there's been a lot of times where I've been loath to admit that I was wrong. That's one of my least favorite things, is to be wrong about something. Although as I age, it becomes easier because, upholding the false pretenses of being right when you're very much not, it's exhausting and it creates more problems than it solves. So be careful of your pride getting kicked in, especially when you're trying to make some important changes to remediate an old mistake. So that's that first quarter moon. The same day, Mercury is going to be ingressing into Taurus. So you can see here Mercury is still at 29 degrees of Aries, but throughout the course of that particular day, it's going to move into Taurus. So this is going to make our communications a little bit less spicy, hopefully. We may be, our thought processes may shift from winning people over to our idealistic side to asking a lot of questions about our resources. The first decan of Taurus is a Mercury ruled face. So it's all about planning. It's all about creating a map that will allow you to create future fertility. I went through this really interesting exercise with my partner this past week as the sun was moving through Taurus 1. We did like these almost like character sheets for ourselves, like role-playing game character sheets, like Dungeons and Dragons character sheets, where we were assessing who we were and what our strengths and what our weaknesses were, what our assets were, right? And helping to give us insight as to how we want to move forward. The second process of that might be making a map to be able to achieve our goals. And when you understand yourself and what is either in support of those goals and what might be blocking it, it's a lot easier to figure out how to overcome it. So that might be something that to try. Maybe it's a reading I could offer, treasure mapping, right? If that's something people are interested in, like gamifying our charts. I think that could be fun. I'm trying to incorporate more fun into my life lately. But this is a moment where those types of endeavors are supported. Planning. If you are feeling a little bit worried about your physical resources, start getting to work. Start planning. Start making a plan to proliferate the resources that you do have. Right? When you have seeds, here's the thing. If you have some seeds in your hand and you're worried about some of them not taking and you never plant them, you're never going to create abundance. You know, let's say you have a handful of tomato seeds and you're like, well, if I plant them, some of them are going to live and some of them aren't. I might as well not plant them at all. I want to keep these seeds forever. I want these seeds to be my seeds. Well, that's counterproductive. Some of the seeds are going to make it, some of them aren't. But none of them are going to make it if you don't plant them in the ground. And that's really what this decan is teaching you, is like, it's time to go. It's time to remove the obstacles to creating future fertility. So that's the 15th. We move forward. Let's keep going. Let's see if So we're going to move forward to the 17th. Okay. So here's May the 17th. And on May the 17th, that same Mercury that we just talked about is going to square Pluto. And it will echo. There's a number of repeating patterns in May. The first pattern is a planet conjoining Uranus. The other pattern that's repeating is a planet squaring Pluto. Okay. So in this case, we just overcame in the beginning of the month Venus squaring Pluto. So this might connect back to the moment that we had Venus squaring Pluto. At the about a week ago or so, we had the Sun squaring Pluto. So kind of think back what was happening last weekend and maybe connect it with these other planets starting to square Pluto. Again, a lot of the conversation could be about fear of lack, fear of scarcity, and also how our abundance creation and resources fit within the social context, within the societies that we live within our fears of being visible too. Like this, sometimes Pluto with Aquarius placements can be afraid of being visible, be afraid of social environments. So maybe there's something that you're trying to put out into the world, but to create for future abundance, but you're maybe afraid that your social milieu is not going to support that, or your social environment or something like that. So these are questions to be asked and journeys to go on. Julian says, you lose 100% of the chances that you don't take. Absolutely. That's wise advice. And I believe there was a guy that owned a certain hockey team down there in Arizona, the Coyotes. His name was Wayne Gretzky. Says you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. You know, it's the same deal, right? So you gotta shoot the puck every once in a while. Okay, so that is the 17th, the square with Mercury and Pluto. Just be careful of your communication. Be careful of trying to create abundance, but through nefarious means. Like oftentimes when we have squares with Pluto, it can bring up ethical challenges, ethical crises, where we have to deal with an ethical lapse. So make sure that you're staying above board with this. Julian says, yes, that's it. Of course, now the team is in Utah. Yeah, they just moved, right? I just saw that. I just became aware of that. That's wild. Ray Weather is here. Says, seeds grow, bear fruit, and create more seeds. Yeah, right? So plant those seeds, you know? It really does build upon itself, right? I mean, there's also this concept of compound interest. You invest something and you let it do its work and it creates more. It's the same kind of energy. So nice analogy there. All right. If we get to the 18th, we've got a pretty big day on the 18th. So before we get to the Jupiter Cazimi moment, we have to have a tough conversation. Okay. We have to have a difficult conversation and unearth maybe some of our previous belief systems that we're attached to that may be limiting belief systems. I often find some of the negative challenges of Aquarius are glass ceiling like negative beliefs, where we can see the future that we want, but we don't allow ourselves to go past a certain point because maybe we lack confidence, or maybe we feel like, oh, well, I could never do that. You know, we have self-imposed limitations that are more idealistic limitations than anything else. So to get past that, to get to the other side, you have to have a difficult conversation and unearth some of those belief systems. And that brings us to the 18th, which is one of the watershed moments of the month. Now here we have this beautiful Jupiter Cazimi. Okay, this is 28 degrees of Taurus, and Jupiter is being renewed in the heart of the sun. We've got the Jupiter Cazimi, and we have we have Venus conjoining Uranus. So this is a double conjunction. Let's just circle the whole thing, because that's a lot of stack up in Taurus 3. And we've talked about Taurus 3, so you have an idea of some of the themes that could bring you good fortune. All right? We create good fortune and meet good fortune by taking action with Jupiter. And as my good friend Devin pointed out, I don't know if you're lurking, Devin, but he was saying that we have to meet Jupiter with action to allow him to confirm our good fortune. Whereas with Venus, sometimes we have to just open ourselves up and surrender to that process. So we can both take action and surrender in this particular day. It might be something good that comes to us through no action of our own, but there could also be the results of a positive realization about how to fix something. Oh, let's see. Luna Storm says, I hope it's a good week. I have a friend visiting May 15th to May 20th. I think it is going to be a good week. Sun's going to be in benefic enclosure. I think it's going to be an amazing week. I've got that one circled. I think I might go on a birding trip with my dad, hopefully. That would be I think it's a nice time to visit with people. Ani says, oh, dang, we're a day early. I hope to catch up on the replay. Sorry, Ani. We're doing it a day early because for my own selfish purposes, that today is the first day of the NFL draft, and I know that I might be a little bit sleep deprived tomorrow to be able to get through the astrology intact. But I will say, Ani, is there's enough people that have expressed some interest in doing some draft analysis with the power of astrology tomorrow as well. So maybe you'll get double live streams this week, just because I'm so excited about the draft. But you'll have to forgive me if I'm a little tired tomorrow from just geeking out on it. But yeah, we've gone on a journey already. Tarya says, I'm a bit nervous about Mars coming to an eclipse degree. Yeah, we can talk about that. I think that we'll break that down when we talk about Mars coming in contact with the North Node. I think that is definitely the one sticky moment beyond the squares with Pluto that I think we should probably be aware of. Ani says, damn, this is close in to my ascendant opposing my moon. Okay, let's get and receive. Yep, get it and receive. Yeah, this is a nice transit. I think that this is a really nice moment, but as long as we're humble, I think that's the key. We have to humble ourselves in the face of nature. There's going to be some forces that are out of our control. with this, but this is a beautiful moment for renewal for Jupiter significations. So two things there's two or three topics that are going to be coming together. Actually, four, if I'm honest. Jupiter is the ruler of Pisces and Sagittarius. So all of the actions are happening in the Taurus topic or country or temple of our life. But they are going to be related back to the Pisces and Sagittarius topics. And since Venus is coming together with Uranus, they're going to also be bringing in Libra topics. Okay. So that's where we're getting the whole, like, bringing in different topics with a planet that's hosting other signs in the zodiac. So this is a really important concept if you want to do Hellenistic astrology, is understanding those guest host relationships and what they're providing for. So yes, I think it's going to be a good week though. KP says, as a Jupiter ruled sign, I'm excited about the Cazimi. Yes, it's going to be a renewal for all of you Sag risings, Pisces risings. I think Karen is a Sag rising. So she's going to have this in her 6th house. So there might be some realizations about an injury, an illness, like a dietary thing, about people you work with that could lead to some really positive changes, not only in your own health or your own sense of self, but potentially also related to your home and your family and your domestic situation. So it is an exciting time for sure. Ani says, I'm marking it also auspiciously benefit. So I'm so glad I made it. Better late than never. Yeah. I'm glad that people stop in whenever, benefic, definitely. We just hang out, whether it's a Thursday or a Friday. Here's the thing. If you never want to miss a live stream again, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and also sign up for the newsletter so that you'll know when I'm going live. Because I do make adjustments here or there. It's mostly Fridays, but when there's special circumstances like this, I have been known to move it around. Julian says, Packers get Cooper DeJean. Yeah, it's you wrote DeJuan, but it's DeJean. That's okay. Yeah, he has been a very popular player for the Packers to pick in mock drafts. I would be fine with it. He's an Aquarius from cornerback / safety from University of Iowa. He's an exceptional athlete, and he's really good at intercepting the ball and running it back for touchdowns. So I'd be cool with it. My only question with Cooper DeJean is that he's an Aquarius, and he grew up a Vikings fan. He's from South Dakota. He grew up a Vikings fan. Wouldn't it be ironic that he would find himself in a foreign place, like as a professional? Like if he had to play for the Packers growing up a Vikings fan, the irony would be delicious. But I think he would change his tune pretty quickly when he saw the dollar signs on his contract and when he felt love from Packers fans. If there's a player that Packers fans want across the board, it's Cooper DeJean. Like, that would make Packers Nation very happy. I would be fine with it. I think he's a good player, and there's a number of players I'd be happy with, but he would definitely be a nice piece for the Packers moving forward. Ani says, enjoy the sports ball. Yes, absolutely. We're doing astrology and geeking out today, getting prepared for the draft tonight. Ani says, Jupiter is my Lord of the Year too. I'm feeling lucky and humble. Good. I mean, the combination of those things, humility sometimes creates good luck. All right. You auto-corrected DeJuan. That's all right. No worries. What's up, Jennifer? Nice to see you. We're chatting Astrology of May, and we're talking NFL draft since we're excited that football Christmas is here. Are you a Lions fan, Jennifer? Being a Michigan native, let us know in the chat. Liv says, that is so ironic. Yes, I'm assuming with Cooper DeJean, if he becomes a Packer, it would be delicious irony for sure. Him having to learn how to be a Packers fan. Oh boy. Or be a Packers employee, actually. Okay, Julian says, LOL, Vikings fan. No offense to the Vikings or their fans, but they were the most challenging fans to deal with at the Cardinals games. You won't get any argument from me here. I have a few friends who are Vikings fans, but I think that the Packers and the Vikings rivalry is probably only second to the Bears rivalry. And those fan bases generally do not get along with one another. The Packers and Lions fans, I think that there's a mutual respect there. The fact of the matter has been is that the Lions haven't been very good until very recently. So really, Packers fans haven't had much to worry about with Lions fans. But the Vikings were good in the past, and the Bears have been good at various points. And they might be good again with their draft class, potentially. Okay. Taria says, KP, Sag Rising 2 have been in better health all this time with Jupiter being in Taurus. So so Taria, you might be getting the benefits of that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. And I think that this is just going to continue to improve all of the conditions for you Sag Risings with this beneficial stack up in Taurus coming in May. GLG is being nice. Yeah. Yeah. Different fan bases. I got into it with an Eagles fan the other, during the Super Bowl season a couple years ago. I predicted that the Chiefs would beat the Eagles in the Super Bowl doing a South Node method. And someone was really offended that I didn't pick the Eagles and asked me to, quote unquote, put a stack on my feelings, basically put money down on the game. And as much as I love sports, I'm not a sports gambler. So I was like, I respectfully declined, but Eagles fans have been the ones that have been, I know we've got an Eagles fan in the audience, in the community here that has been super nice to me. I'm trying to remember. Marjorie, I believe, is an Eagles fan. If that's your name, I'm sorry if I got it wrong, but there are nice Eagles fans out there, but a lot of them are, that's a tough town, and they are not afraid of giving you their opinion. But on some level, I respect all of these fan bases that are passionate about their team. So it's all good. What's up, Corinne? Nice to see you. Candy Corn. Hopefully you're doing well. Corinne, where are you stopping in from? Let me know if you're a fan of NFL sports or an NFL team in particular. We're talking May astrology and the draft today. East Coast folks are professional fans. Yeah, no doubt, and so are Packer fans. So I get it. Packer fans are generally pretty nice, though. There is Midwest niceness that I think comes throughout certain fan bases. Although there's assholes in every fan base. Okay. Do not gamble based on emotion and being prodded. Hard pass. Yeah, I hear you. Like I said, I'm not into the gambling part. And that makes me a little bit nervous about doing sports astrology sometimes, as I don't want to subject myself to people potentially wanting to gamble on games and then getting mad if I make a prediction and it doesn't come to fruition. When I talk about sports and astrology, it's for entertainment purposes only. All of those disclaimers. Jennifer's not much into football, but I understand it. Played when young with neighborhood friends down at the local park. Nice. Those are always good memories, right? Yes, absolutely. I used to play with a few friends in Waukesha, Wisconsin. And I can still remember those times very vividly and some of the best memories of my childhood. Okay, let's keep going, friends. We got a draft to watch soon, so let's keep going. So we've talked about the 18th as the Jupiter Cazimi, the renewal of Jupiter in the heart of the sun. That is the end, though, of the benefic enclosure of the sun. Once the sun moves past, now watch this, I'll show you. Once the sun moves past the Cazimi, okay, there it is. It is out of that beneficial influence. Doesn't mean that it's not going to be able to still be good. It's still co-present with Jupiter for a few more degrees, but it's not having that protection that those two planets are going to be providing for it. So keep that in mind as we move forward. The other thing to keep in mind is that Jupiter, there's 3 points that are important when you're looking at a Cazimi cycle. There's when Jupiter moves under the beams of the sun, which happens this coming Sunday, actually, as I'm recording this on the 28th of April at 23 degrees of Taurus. And then the Cazimi that's happening on the 18th of May. And then Jupiter will emerge as the morning star from under the beams of the sun at 2 degrees of Gemini, right around the new moon in June, on the 6th of June. We also have a Venus Cazimi in Gemini around that period of time. So it's very interesting for me to see Jupiter emerging right as Venus is moving into the heart of the sun. That's pretty cool, seeing that handoff. That happens a lot in astrology. It's pretty neat. And then the last thing that we have in Taurus 3, before we move forward to Gemini, is we have a couple things. On the 19th, we have the sun making a sextile to Neptune. So this might be a day of fatigue after we have the realizations of the Jupiter Cazimi. Anytime a planet conjoins or aspects Neptune, it's a dissolving influence. So this might be an ego death of some sort after we get the insights that the sun is providing to Jupiter. So we might have to, be kind to ourselves around that period of time. The big news really, besides that, in this day, is Mars conjoining the North Node at 14 degrees of Aries. So this is May 19th. And this is a powerful moment for Mars. This is a potential problem and a potential benefit. I don't know if I can judge it like it's good or bad. I think it is an increase of our desire to move under our own power. And you get to decide how you are going to respond to that influence. In the collective, maybe this is an increase of people's selfish desires that leads to a conflict potentially. I do think that if there are moments for conflict, it's at the squares with Pluto and with this potential increase of martial energy with the North Node. That being said, just because Mars is conjoining the North Node and you may be feeling a strong desire to individuate does not mean that you have to create collateral damage along the way. Okay. This is something we talked about with my good friend Vivi Henriette on her channel, or the Zodiac, yesterday. We went live kind of last minute with her. A good friend of mine that I was really happy to reconnect with. And we talked about being able to understand that we aren't necessarily our chart. We are and we aren't, like, if that makes sense. To me, these planets, they represent people and events in our life. Sometimes the person is us, sometimes it's someone else. Sometimes these represent astrological weather conditions and events that may encourage us to respond in a certain way. The events of a Mars conjoining the North Node may encourage us to respond in a way that is very self-centered. And we should be aware that we have a strong, expanded desire to be an individual around this period of time. Now, Joy Usher, as I was referring to, is a wonderful Australian astrologer that wrote a great book called A Tiny Universe. And she talks about Mars in Aries as a fighter that is swinging a weapon that is unconcerned with collateral damage. Whereas like the converse, Mars in Scorpio energy is more about precision and defending a dying life force rather than trying to cut away to create new life. If you think about the transition between Aries and Taurus, Aries is individuating to be able to infuse a individual point of consciousness into a body in Taurus season. Whereas Mars in Scorpio and Mars Scorpio energy is separating spirit from a body to be able to liberate the spirit moving into Sagittarius season to be able to find a new body, a new home, a new goal. So that's really been an important insight in differentiating between those two particular energies. Okay. So in this case, we have to be careful about creating collateral damage in service of our own personal desires. And we need to be careful of this in the collective as well. Okay. So that's the final thing we have for the Sun in Taurus 3. Let's go back to the chat and the comments here, and I'll check in with that. I'm going to go back here. All right, what do we got here? Let me just check in. Jennifer learned how to tackle back in those childhood neighborhood games. Yes, that's fun. Oh, yeah, good times, good memories. Luna Storm says, I broke a couple of ribs playing beach football in younger days. Oh, yeah, it's a violent sport. They're doing their best to try to make it safer. I will say that. They're changing a lot of the rules in the National Football League. They're changing the equipment to try to reduce the injury part of it, and I think that's a good thing. So I know that there's people have mixed feelings about that particular sport, myself included, but man, when it is good, it's poetry. You know, I just really find transcendence in sport. I just love seeing people push their bodies to their highest potential. And I think that is something that's really beautiful to see, like when people are so talented and so like the strategy and the grace that some of these athletes have. It's something to marvel at. Candy Corn says, Connecticut, I'm not a sporty spice, but my husband talks about sports and I smile and nod. I'm assuming that Connecticut folks are probably Patriots fans, ? So Patriots have a big draft. So your husband, if he is a Patriots fan, he's probably pretty interested to see what the Patriots do with the 3rd overall pick in the draft and if they come out of it with a quarterback, because there's some pretty important quarterbacks. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, and J.J. McCarthy are the top names to keep an eye on. Jennifer says, daughter and granddaughter are coming home from Florida on the 21st. No, so excited. Nice. That'll be a nice reunion. Julene says, very excited about that time. Birthday is June 4th. Ooh, you got a nice Venus Kazemi on your birthday, Julene. That's fun. That'll be good. We'll talk about that in the Astrology of June, but some really important, cool stuff coming in June, too. Karen says, Taria, that's great to hear. My 6th house stuff is of the sacrifice with little result variety, which definitely affects my mental health. Oh, Karen. Well, just keep at it, Karen. Sometimes results don't always happen overnight, and like I think that make sure you're pacing yourself and practicing that good self-care. Ani says, thanks for that reminder not to blow it and wreck it on the way out of the lot. LOL. I needed that warning. Yeah, I mean, this is someone was talking about the being worried about Mars. Tari, I believe that was Tari. I was talking about worried about Mars hitting the eclipse degree. There's a lot of potential for conflict when we have a Martial eclipse and we have Martial energy. Again, we may be feeling the need to work on our own, to be an individual, to fly solo. But part of the way to, I think, do our charts well and to utilize astrology effectively is understanding that when we aren't aware of these planetary movements, we often play out the archetypes anyway due to our ignorance. That's called a Nanke, the force that compels the world to spin. So we've probably lived out a lot of these aspects, and our world leaders are living out these aspects, etc. But the gift that we have when we study astrology is we have the gift of what's called pronoia, the fate that we can create when we are able to understand what we might be influenced by and maybe make a choice in the moment that helps mitigate some of the more negative outcomes. So all of you today are hearing me say, be careful. You might be really fixated on individuating. Maybe take a deep breath and think about someone else's perspective and try to create more of a win-win situation than a win-lose situation, even though you still have to get your needs met with this particular energy. So yeah. Dawn says, isn't it odd when you look back at beginnings and the lack of equipment for football and hockey? Yeah. I'll tell you, I grew up as a hockey player, so I'm familiar with the travel hockey, and I'm sometimes amazed that I didn't get more injured as a child playing that game. I had a few injuries here and there. But actually, the sport that injured me the most, ironically enough, is basketball. I tore my ACL and my MCL in different events playing basketball. So I was a baseball player growing up and a hockey player, and I played basketball in high school. And I tore my ACL just playing pickup basketball in an intramural game in college. And I've dislocated my shoulder a bunch of times playing baseball and men's softball. I think I'm retired from all of those things now because I just need to be able to function in my day to day. I'm 40. I'll be 44 years old this year, and that's sort of the age where you might kind of start to be like, is this worth it or not? Like, maybe it is for some people, but my partner is like, can you just stop doing that now? I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. Okay. Yeah, people giving people love. East Connecticut likes the Pats. West Connecticut likes New York teams generally. Well, which one is your family? Are you a Giants and Jets family or Pats family? Because I got thoughts about all of those teams as well. Ani says Ananke. I like that concept. Yeah. Again, that's the force that compels the Earth to spin on its axis. So the planets can compel us towards action, but we don't always have to follow that compelling nature. Prudence says the world leaders living out these aspects is the scariest part. I agree with you 100%, Prudence. Isn't it funny how we can actually see these things play out in the collective through the ignorance of our leaders? I think that's totally legit. So that may be one particular reason for concern with Mars coming together with the North Node is what might the people do that are not aware of these types of movements and not trying to mitigate them. But we can only do what we can do. Like, we can only do what we can do in our own lives and try to help where the collective challenges arise. And I think that you be the change that you want to see in the world. If you know that this is going to be a hairy aspect, and here's the other thing. If you know that people in your life who aren't aware of this happening are probably going to have an expansion of their ability to create conflict and be self-serving, you don't necessarily have to respond in kind. You can respond in a different way so that you don't get caught up in that collective ignorance. I think that's really important. And I think that's a way to navigate these things with grace. Yeah, Julian says, maybe we could be heroes just for one day. We can be heroes. That's my best David Bowie. Just for one day. Oh, boy, I love David Bowie. One of my faves. Ani says, might as well tune in so Ananke does not play out unconsciously. It's the worst being a cliche stereotype. Amen to that, friend. I agree. Jennifer says, hockey was my favorite to play. Hockey is awesome. I miss that game. I was a pretty good skater, friends. I was a good enough skater back in the day that when I was in my late 20s, I got cast in a musical called Honk the Musical. And if you're familiar with that, it's about a ugly duckling that becomes a swan. And I offered to put on my rollerblades and while I was singing and do this beautiful swan-like dance on my rollerblades. That was an amazing moment. I miss skating. It's a lot of fun to just feel the freedom and the speed and the grace when you're on the ice, and there's nothing like it. Don says, I highly recommend Astrology Podcast new episode yesterday about Jupiter-Uranus Part 2. Chris and Patrick, I'm assuming that's Patrick Watson, discusses 1941 to today. And it's so amazing to see the similarities. No fear, just opportunities. Ooh, I like that. I love it. I'll check it out. I've had less time to engage with other astrology content, and sometimes I almost avoid it so that I am coming at these things with fresh eyes and ears. But I really respect the work that they do. Patrick Watson's great too, and Chris is, of course, one of the best. So I'll have to check it out. Thanks for lighting me up on that. Luna Storm says, I miss David Bowie. I miss David Bowie too. I was shattered when he passed. It was kind of unexpected too. I wrote a song about it. That year was tough. That was 2016. We lost Prince, David Bowie, Princess Leia, George Michael. Like, that was a tough year. I think everybody was like, they saw what was going on in the American political sphere and they were like, I'm out. Like, this is I'm done. Which is sort of understandable on some level, but we need people that are willing to speak truth to power, even in what could be challenging times. Candy Corn says, we are on the East Coast and my family likes the Pats. My husband is from upstate New York and he likes the Giants. The New York Football Giants. Well, Corinne, the Giants have the number 6 overall pick, and they're probably potentially either could be looking for a new quarterback, even though they've got Daniel Jones, or maybe they pick a wide receiver, someone like Malik Neighbors or Marvin Harrison Jr. They need receivers. I have a feeling if Marvin Harrison doesn't go to Arizona, they'll pick him in New York. They could also get a guy named Roma Dunze, who's a Gemini. So Roma Dunze is a Gemini. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a Leo. And Malik Neighbors, I think, is potentially a Leo, but I can't remember. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Think wide receiver if they don't go quarterback. Yeah, better to be aware. Bowie is the best. We got Bowie fans here. Ani says, I'm a walking archetype if I don't pay attention, so I appreciate your insights on the chance. Thank you, friend. Appreciate you. Good call, Don. AP is in my short queue. Nice. Glenn Fry, question mark? Oh, did he die in that year too? Yeah, I think he probably did. Yeah, 2016. A bunch of people left the planet in that year for sure. I wrote a song about it, so it was called A Very Long Year. And I believe that there was the Earth, Wind, and Fire. Maurice White died that year. Princess Leia, David Bowie, George Michael, Glenn Fry. Just a ton of people. Don says, I appreciate Chris's contribution to astrology so much. He is such a gift to explain techniques and see correlations even when you want to disagree. Absolutely. I try to do some of that here too. Try to teach as well as just forecast. So I appreciate that Chris does that. And to be honest with you, he was my initiation into Hellenistic astrology. Of course, I've studied with the Nightlight folks, but Chris's podcast was something that I listened to when I was learning about Hellenistic astrology for the first time. It opened so many doors for me. So he's done such a great service for the community for sure. Arizona is always unpredictable. Yes, who knows what's going to happen at number 4. Cosmos and Psyche. Yes, Jennifer, a very good book. Okay, friends, let's keep going. Awesome comments. Do me a huge favor. Please like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to make a donation to the work that I'm doing here, you can buy a super chat or a super sticker. You can also buy me coffee at buymecoffee.com. The Decans of Taurus is also on sale right now. And my lovely partner, Tanya Andrews, has a bunch of Mars and Capricorn stuff in there, especially this new oil called High John the Conqueror. It's based on this root that is very important in Conjure, and it helps you overcome obstacles. And it's an empowering root. And it's pretty awesome stuff. I've been wearing it here and there. I'm wearing the beaver one today because I had a lot of work to do earlier in the day, and I needed to just get to work. And I need to eliminate the distractions of the draft. My brain wanted to talk draft and research draft all morning, but I had other work I had to do, and the beaver oil helped me overcome. So check them out. Third Coast Mojo on Etsy. Dawn says, we are so appreciative of you, Spencer. Seriously, but no butt kissing. Your willingness to answer questions without derision is loved. Oh, that makes me feel great, Dawn. Yeah, I'm of the opinion that there are no stupid questions. All questions just show a genuine interest. And being able to ask questions, I think I ask more questions than making definitive statements here. I think that's a sign of intelligence and a sign of flexibility. So I welcome questions on this channel. And thank you so much, Dawn, for showing up each week. Appreciate you. Luna Storm says, I like that you make both astrologies accessible. Nice. Yeah, I try to do my best. Venus and Gemini at work. Candy Corn says, there was a meme that said, give us back Prince and Bowie and we'll give you the Kardashians. I would make that trade, Corinne. Absolutely. 100%. Ani says, I'm getting some of the Mars Cap elections from Tanya. Good. Nice. Busy Beaver. Need that. Yeah, that has actual chips from a tree that a beaver started processing in our area. And the beaver had only returned for the first time in 150 years to our area in Michigan, to the watershed, one of the Huron watershed, Fleming Creek watershed in our area. It's really cool. And we collected a few wood chips and incorporated it into the magical working. So hopefully the beaver spirit is strong within it. And it's very Mars and Capricorn. Julene, thank you for the super sticker. Thank you. Appreciate you. I appreciate you, Julene. I'm so excited for you and the Cardinals and for Keegan and all of you down there. So appreciate you being here each week, and especially excited for Gemini season for you, Julene. Ditto what Dawn said. Thank you. Thank you so much, friend. Thank you, Uranus Ascending. Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate you. Jennifer says, need to get some help something to help me stop smoking from time to time. Well, I mean, I think Mars in Capricorn is all about discipline. She's got a Saturn and Aquarius oil too that might be helpful for having more discipline. But I think the Mars and Capricorn, there's one oil in that series, it's called Blockbuster, and it's about breaking through bad habits and breaking through blockages to our health and our success. So that might be a good one to try, Jennifer. Kathy says, I discovered, I'm sorry, Karen? I keep confusing Karen and Kathy. If I do that, I apologize in advance. What you should do, KP1231, is just change your username to Karen1231, and then it'll be all good. Just do it for my benefit, okay? For my old brain. I discovered Chris Brennan during the pandemic, currently in year 2 at Nightlight. He was the catalyst to study astrology for so many, and the road led here. There are no coincidences. Yeah, me too. You know, I actually heard Adam for the first time on Astrology Podcast, and I liked his vibe, and it helped me to decide that he was the teacher for me. So absolutely. And Chris is great too. Everyone has something different to offer, and I don't think you can go wrong with either one of those guys. All right. Thank you for the emoji there, Ani. Nice, more grounded than bees. Yes, we're grounded here. Okay. I love all these comments. I love it. So I'm going to keep going with the astrology. I wish I could get to every single one, but I'm going to keep going so that we can come in around the 3-hour mark, hopefully. And what we're going to do now, and keep the comments and questions coming. I would love to just chat all day, and maybe we'll do that tomorrow, but I've got to finish up this forecast here. So let's talk about the Sun in Gemini 1. So the Sun in Gemini 1 is happening from the 20th of May to the 30th of May. Happy birthday to my mom. Happy heavenly birthday to Mom on May the 30th. She is a Gemini. And what we're going to be seeing here, you can see that the Sun is ingressed into Gemini, and now it is going to be shifting its relationship to its host, which becomes Mercury. Now, this is a little bit challenging because when the Sun was moving through Taurus and Venus was in Taurus, it had direct access to its resources that it needed. Now, in the beginning stages of Gemini season, the Sun will not have access to Mercury because it is in aversion, because it is not able to witness that planet. So there may be some confusion. When the Sun moves into Gemini 1, I'll just bring up the decans of Gemini here so you can see that. Here's our transition from Gemini 1, 2, and 3. The first decan is Jupiter ruled. Now, if you notice anything, Jupiter in traditional astrology has opposite energy than Mercury. Jupiter likes to have answers. Mercury likes to ask questions. So when we have Jupiter in a Mercury-ruled sign, which we'll talk about later, we're asking a lot of questions when we are hoping to have answers and directions to go. Now, when the Sun moves into this first decan, we have a proliferation and expansion, Jupiter, of questions or options or paths, Mercury. And that can lead to a little bit of paralysis by analysis. This first decan of Gemini is like, oh my God, we want to explore everything, but that gives me a little bit of an existential crisis, and I don't know what to do, and that just makes me procrastinate and not do anything. So I've felt this energy in my life a lot. A lot of it is because we don't want to commit before we have enough information, before we've tried a little of this and a little of that. And I think that one of the ways to get over the paralysis of Gemini 1, I think is really just allow yourself to sit in ambiguity for a period of time, okay? To just be able to say, this is an exploration phase. I don't have to commit to any of these things necessarily. I just need to gather information, process it, and then let go. Like if you look at the transition, you've got expansion of options, then you've got a Mars-ruled decan where that's where the anxiety comes in often, is we're trying to say, oh, we've got two competing interests. This is keeping me up at night, right? That's what we get in Gemini 2. And then finally, we have the solar decan, which shines a light on the choice that needs to be made. Remember, Gemini mythology is related to the twins Castor and Pollux, the Discouri. which one of them was immortal, one was mortal. One of them died in a battle with another set of twins, and the remaining twin, Pollux, had to sacrifice some of his immortality to allow his twin to live again, half the time on Olympus and half the time in the underworld. So what that teaches us is that sometimes we have to sacrifice one of our twins and one of our paths and choices so that the other can actually live. And that to me is very fascinating, because the transition between Gemini and Cancer says once we've sacrificed all of the options, and we are not just sacrificing all of the options, we're sacrificing the ones that aren't appropriate for us in that moment for the specific purpose of nurturing one particular thing into fruition. Keep that in mind, Gemini friends, is that there is not a place, just like we talked about Aries, where if you're an Aries influenced person, you don't have to fight all the time. You don't have to be alone all the time. That's one phase of a cycle. Gemini is one phase of a cycle. It is an exploration phase. It is the information gathering phase so that you can eventually make a choice. Now, once you make that choice, the Cancer part of the phase is protecting it and say, okay, I need to nurture this. I need to feed it. I need to clothe it. I need to put it behind the walled garden. I need to protect it. You don't want to get stuck in that phase either, right? This is why, Cancers have some trouble letting go when they're parents. It's because they're like, oh, I just want to keep protecting you. I want you to be my little baby. But the evolution, the next stage of that is the Leo stage, where you're shining its light. And you're saying, oh, I'm going to shine this light out into the world. I'm not going to protect it. I'm going to become visible. So think about that when you're going through these Gemini decans and Gemini phases, is that this is one part of a cycle. It is the information gathering, exploration, pollination phase, if we're thinking about it in nature terms. So we're visiting many different flowers, gathering pollen, but we're gathering that pollen so that we can bring it back to the hive and create honey from it. We're not just gathering pollen indefinitely. If a bumblebee would gather pollen indefinitely, it would gather so much that it wouldn't be able to fly anymore. Think about that. You gather so many facts, so many thoughts, so much information, you're not going to be able to fly. Guess who you become? You become this figure in the Ten of Swords. He's not going to be doing any flying today, right? Some of the ideas aren't going to fly. Some of them have to be let go of. Sometimes you have to take the pollen back to the hive and process it. To me, that's a Virgo process, right? Where we're saying, okay, let's integrate it. Facts without integration is just trivia. So if you don't want your life to be trivial, you have to integrate that information into something useful, practical, into form. And when we work in the world of form, we have to follow form's rules. We have to follow patience, timing. We have to follow the manifestation rules of like planting the seed, watering it, watching it grow, harvesting it, returning it back to the earth. Those are Virgo rules, that we are understanding the limitations of some of these ideas and thoughts and how we can infuse them into form. And again, when you have squares like this between Gemini and Virgo sometimes, like I do in my chart, think about it as breathing. Breathing information in, integrating it, exhaling out the things that aren't serving you in that moment. It doesn't mean you'll never take another breath if you exhale. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that because you haven't integrated every single piece of that the opportunity won't come around again. Okay? There's some things that won't come around, but those things probably weren't for you. Not everything is for us. I'm just thinking and reading. Okay. Yeah, we've got awesome comments in the chat. You all are great. Love you all. I'm just and yes, I'll consider changing my handle only for you, Spencer. Thanks, Karen. Like, that would help me out. I'm doing my best to remember everyone's name, but there's a lot of activity in there. Even if you want to just put Karen in parentheses after it, or whatever your names are, it helps me out a lot. Julian says, I have Jupiter and Gemini 1 as well as Mercury. Aren't those cards a breath of fresh air? Not so much always. Yeah. Isn't it surprising? I have I have felt that way just in my deck and research, is that those are some of the toughest cards in the tarot, in the minor arcana of the tarot. What doesn't surprise me though is that Gemini is syncretized with the 12th house in the Thema Mundi. And that to me brings a lot of insight. So 12th house is often the things that bring us further away from our empowerment. And in this case, we are feeling paralyzed by the need to make a choice. Remember, the 12th house is also the house that was on the ascendant previously. It is a period before incarnation. So think about the choices that you have to make as in the myth of where a Roman soldier retains his memory into the afterlife and has to witness people choosing lots for the next life, and how paralyzing that might be with the awareness of all the pros and cons and ins and outs and highs and lows of the life that you're choosing, and how that might make you feel. And that might give you some insight into Gemini. I think that one of the biggest mistakes we can make is considering Gemini only a childlike archetype. I think that its conflation with the 12th house brings us a lot more insight into, there's some heavy energy with Gemini, for sure. So there is some childlike qualities to it. But again, Hermes is amorphous. He's able to change forms. Part of the childlike energy of Gemini comes from the precociousness of Hermes within the Greek mythological system. The fact that he was so talented from such a young age. But talent only gets us so far. Like, we need to put in the work too. That's another thing that we have to learn when we have Gemini placements is, you can only rely on those natural abilities to a certain point, and then you got to get your hands dirty every once in a while. Okay. Ani's going to be seeing us on the replay. Nice to see you, Ani. Appreciate you being here today. Jennifer has ascendant 28 degrees. Mars at 8 degrees Gemini too. So hopefully this is resonating for you, Jennifer. Yes, resonates. Nice. Okay, very good. Julene says Jupiter 9 degrees on Aldebaran. So there's that. We'll talk about Aldebaran a little bit as we move forward for sure. Data has become my middle name at times. Yes. Like I said, every sign, planet has a role. And the exploration phase is important. We need people who can process massive amounts of data. And our Gemini friends are very good at that. They can do it much quicker than a lot of people. Dawn says, I love my Gemini full moon and part of fortune. Nice, Dawn. I have Gemini part of fortune as well. 21 degrees Gemini. So yeah, team Gemini, part of fortune. Okay, let's keep going. So we've explored Gemini 1 a little bit. Let's go to the chart. So here we have the chart around May the 20th, and we are going to be dealing with a Venus. Let's see. Let me, speaking of data, I got to change my data page over. The thing to keep in mind at the beginning of Gemini season is that the sun and these subsequent planets that will move into Gemini, Venus, Jupiter, eventually Mercury, are all going to both trine Pluto and become in arrangement of a overcoming square from receiving an overcoming square from Saturn in Pisces. So one of the things that is really important as we start moving into Gemini season, friends. I'm going to repeat this a couple times. Don't spread yourself too thin. Don't overestimate your abilities. Like, Saturn in Pisces is saying, hey, this is the limits of your, here's the limitations that you have between the dream and your skill set and your ability to manifest that in the physical plane. That those Gemini planets are going to be like, more information, more movement, more exploration. Saturn says, hey, slow down. Make sure that you are ready for what you're trying to enact. And I think that there's a challenge between the head and the heart with that. Your head says, I can do that. I want to explore this. And the heart is saying, wait a minute, slow down. Where do you find meaning within this? What does this mean for you in the long term? How does this benefit your spirit and your soul rather than just rationalizing something away? So there will be some tough moments with the squares to Saturn, potentially for Gemini type folks, where we're going to come face to face with our limitations. That decan of Pisces that Saturn is moving through this Gemini season is very much related to overestimating your ability and the challenges that come from that. So say it with me. I will do what is within my capability, and I will not overextend myself. Okay, say it again. Okay, so be intentional about those things, right? Let's try to focus. All right, so the first interesting aspect we have during Gemini season is the conjunction of Venus and Jupiter. So another potentially positive moment, especially for remediating old mistakes. So this could be like this could be a moment where the benefits come to you from the process that you started when Jupiter was conjoining Uranus. I'm very hopeful. Like I've been pretty public about this in my live streams. I'm very hopeful that some of the past mistakes that I made regarding a student loan, or that the system brought me through my student loan, might get remediated around this period of time. Like I had a student loan that ballooned into double the amount that I originally borrowed because of predatory lending practices by private loan companies, and have since reconsolidated that loan into a public loan facilitator to be able to get credit for some of the payments that I made in the past when I was under that private loan company. And one of the things that the United States is doing right now is reevaluating the amount of payments that you've made towards forgiveness of the loan, and also forgiving excessive interest that was charged to you because of these predatory lending practices. So I'm kind of hopeful that this might be a moment like that, where the resources meet the action. So think about in your life where the resources might actually be meeting the actions that you took to be able to remediate some sort of problem in the past. Okay, so that's Venus, Jupiter coming together. The other thing I would consider about this as a warning, even though the two benefics are coming together, it could be a beautiful moment. You just have to be careful about overdoing something good. Like Venus and Taurus could be very interested in eating food, or having something delicious or beautiful. And when it comes together with Jupiter, you want more of that. So everything in moderation. Everything that can be healthy and good and enjoyable can eventually become toxic if we overdo it. So keep that in mind as just a small mitigating warning. That day also sees a Venus-Neptune sextile. Another warning to not overdo it, okay? Because we might be not being necessarily realistic about our limitations when we have both of those planets, Jupiter and Venus, making a sextile with Neptune, okay? So be very careful around that period of time. I was, unfortunately, in that earlier analysis, I neglected to see that in my notes that this is why context matters. That this is our full moon day. This is the same day as the full moon. So everything I've said about not overdoing things, about practicing moderation, we can all contextualize within a full moon in Sagittarius, opposite the Gemini sun. So the Gemini sun is proliferating options, and we might be getting frozen by the number of pathways that we could pursue. The moon in Sagittarius one demands us to take action. It says, all right, you've thought about this enough. It's time to get moving. It's time to move things along. There is a contagious enthusiasm in Sagittarius one. So you may have a lot of ideas, and you may be sharing them in a very passionate way around this full moon, okay? It is also, there's a spirit in that decan called Loimos, and Loimos was a god of plagues. So you can think about, that's where we get the contagious enthusiasm type of things. We have to be careful that we're not becoming a host for other people's vision as well. That's another warning that comes in the decan research, is because Loimos is searching for a host, we have to make sure that we're moving towards our own goals and not just the goals of others as well. And balance in that is the key. Okay, this full moon is hosted by Jupiter, and Jupiter is going to be conjoining Venus. So it could be some positive things with that, although there is an aversion between those two bodies, with Jupiter and the moon being an aversion. This is a big day. The 23rd is a big day. Also on the 23rd, after Jupiter and Venus come together, all this happening at once, Venus moves into Gemini. Check that out. So it conjoins with Jupiter, and then Venus moves into Gemini right there at the end of the day on Thursday, May 23rd. So that shifts our focus from remediating past mistakes to exploration of options. Alternatives might become much more attractive during this period of time. That also puts Venus into the trine with Pluto, but it also puts Venus into the whole sign square with Saturn. So again, we have to respect our limitations potentially. And Jupiter is also going to be sextiling Neptune during this day. So we move forward a few more days, and the aforementioned Venus-Pluto trine is perfecting around the 24th and 25th. So we're exploring options, and we might be seeking alternatives and trying to find beauty on the fringe, potentially. Maybe we had an experience where we didn't want to be part of a centralized, organized system that we found was unfair or exploitive, and now we're exploring our options, potentially, in trying to find beauty on the fringes of society. That's one of the themes of Aquarius 1. It's a Venus-ruled decan. So it is saying, all right, maybe we have to work with materials of quote-unquote lesser quality, like copper instead of gold. But we can still create beauty. We can still make something from what others have discarded and create beautiful experiences. So that might be something to consider when we have the trine between Venus and Pluto, is exploring our options in ways that we can create beauty on the fringes of society or with materials that have been discarded by others. Now, the 25th also is going to bring us to one of the bigger ingresses of the month, and that is Jupiter ingressing into Gemini. There it is. Okay, joining with Venus and the Sun. Now, we've talked about Gemini 1, and we've talked about the explosion of options. Now, the one benefit of Jupiter and Gemini is that Jupiter will be in its own face. We have the ability to explore many different options in this particular, planetary face combination. That could lead to paralysis, but it doesn't have to. That's like the warning. I think that if we're okay with being uncommitted in the beginning stages of this, that can lead to better outcomes. I think there is a time and a place for keeping things loose and exploring your alternatives. What you don't want to do is get stuck in it indefinitely. What you don't want to do is beat yourself to hell because you aren't making a decision. That's the danger of this particular place, is that we're just so overwhelmed by all the different directions that we're trying to explore that we feel inadequate to the task. And we have to be gentle with ourselves. A lot of us aren't comfortable with ambiguity. We're not comfortable saying, well, this could be this or it could be something else. We want certainty a lot of the times. We want security. And that may be less of what is supported during this astrological weather. So allow yourselves to explore. Have fun with the process. Have fun with possibilities without getting overly committed to any of them in the beginning stages. The time for commitment will come. I really do think the Venus Cazimi that happens at the beginning of June is a big moment for balancing out all of the different competing interests in our life. And eventually when we get the planets moving through Gemini 3, that's when we say, okay, some of these options have to go. We can't keep all of these things juggling in the air, all these plates spinning. Okay, but I don't think the beginning stages are for that. The beginning stages, have fun with the exploration process. Gather that pollen. Okay. I'm going to keep rolling, friends. I'm appreciating all the comments in the chat. Please make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't yet. I gotta go, Luna Storm. Thank you, Spencer. I'll be back tomorrow. Good. Yeah, join us tomorrow. I'm going to do an impromptu last-minute live stream, I think, if I'm not too exhausted from staying up too late, to talk about the NFL draft specifically and the astrology behind some of these draft picks. We'll be able to break down some of the fits with your favorite team and who they drafted in the first round and take a look at their astrology and how that might fit in with other players and other coaches. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Probably around 2 p.m. Eastern time. I usually use that time on Fridays now because it's the solar hour. So that kind of mark your calendar. I think that's probably when I'm going to do it. But make sure you're signed up. I'll send out an email as well. Okay. We're almost done, friends. Almost done. We're coming around the bend. She'll be coming around the mountain when she comes. She'll be coming around the mountain when she comes. Okay. 27th. Now the same. Before I go forward to the 27th, keep in mind also that now Jupiter is moving into that whole sign square with Saturn. So we may be wanting to move forward with something, but we have to appreciate the limitations of our abilities. Okay. Now when we are at the 25th. Or the 27th, excuse me. I'm going forward by an hour, and I want to go forward by a day. That's why. When we get to the... Let me move this back again. When we get to the 27th, we have a somewhat of a minor aspect, not necessarily earth-shattering, but we have Mercury coming into a sextile with Saturn. So a supportive relationship between Mercury in the second decan of Taurus, being able to communicate with Saturn. So asking a lot of questions about giving and receiving, and then understanding the limits and boundaries of that could be supported in those conversations. So it's important to understand what is possible. Like maybe you're giving a loan to a friend, and you have to respect the boundaries of what is possible. Okay, maybe you're offering a service, but you have to understand the limitations of your time or things of that nature. This could be an aspect to help you understand what boundaries you should set and what is possible for you within the dream that you're trying to enact. Now we'll get to the 30th. Again, happy birthday to my mom on the other side. She was a lovely Gemini lady with a Libra rising and a Pisces moon. Miss you, Mom. This is a period in the astrological cycle where we come to a quarter moon. So this is a last quarter moon. So here we see the sun at 9 degrees Gemini, getting pretty close to the conjunction with Venus already. Venus is applying already. And then here we have the moon coming closer in that within the span of the next 24 hours into a conjunction with Saturn. So this is the point where we might be feeling like, I've got all these options, I've got all this information, but what does it mean? How do we integrate it into our vision, into our hearts, into the way that we find meaning in our life? Now, the first decan of Pisces is related to the 8 of Cups, where we see a figure leaving behind material success. So again, this is a last quarter moon. So this is the existential crisis that happens so that we can release some of the things that we've acquired physically, spiritually, mentally during this lunar cycle so that we can have a new start. Now, friends, this might be a conflict between our desire to explore, Gemini, and our desire to escape into our imaginations, into our minds. And we may have to reconcile those two things to be able to bring us to the new moon in Gemini on June 6th with a cazimi of Venus at 14 degrees of Gemini shortly before it. The new moon is at 16 Gemini. I'll be keeping an eye on that and keep an eye on this channel, because I think there's going to be some important stuff going down there, because that's right on my natal Venus. Like exactly 16 degrees. I have a new moon on my natal Venus in the 11th house, which is all of you, the 11th house. And a Venus Kazemi. I think there's just going to be some really important movements moving forward. I hope that they're good. I think they will be. I'm looking forward to it. But again, we have to be careful and understand our limitations and how it's going to fit into the other fabrics and mycelium of our lives, because all of those planets at that new moon are going to be squared Saturn. So get really clear about your why during this last quarter moon, okay? Don't ignore what brings you meaning in life just for the sake of novelty and exploration, and don't ignore your limitations around that, because if you do, you could find yourself in a position where you've overcommitted at the next new full moon. I'm speaking directly to my future self as well. So try to respect your limitations and don't overestimate your abilities. All right, we got some people that are checking out. Nice to see you, friends, and we'll check back in tomorrow. Nice to see you, Luna Storm. Tracy is going to go back and listen after the live. Don't want to miss anything. Nice, okay. Everyone's got to go pick up their kids from school and stuff. But I appreciate you hanging out with me here today, Tracy and Luna Storm. KP's got that full moon in Sag right on their center. That'll be a big one for you. You know, try not to overthink things, friend. Let's see. Julene says, my son is at 16 Gemini rising, trine is Mercury in Libra. Ooh, big start, new start for him. I wonder, Julene, is he getting any offers already for maybe colleges? Julene's son is a talented football prospect, 6'7", 300 and some odd pounds. Like he was blessed with size and with a good heart, it sounds like. So maybe there'll be some more scouts reaching out to him potentially. Keep your eyes peeled for that, Julene, and explore your options and appreciate the limitations of the situation too. Okay, finally, we have the sun moving into Gemini 2, okay? This is on the end of the day on the 30th into the 31st. And couple things. The Gemini 2 starts off with the aforementioned fixed star Aldebaran at about 9 or 10 degrees of Gemini. Aldebaran is one of the royal fixed stars of Persia that is related to integrity. And it is part of the integrity stories that Bernadette Brady talks about in her wonderful book about fixed stars, is related to Ahura Mazda, who was a great military leader who required discipline. So that fixed star, every royal fixed star of Persia, Aldebaran, Antares, Regulus, Fomalhaut, offers empowerment as long as we avoid a nemesis or something that could bring us off path. You know, in Regulus, it'll grant power as long as we aren't fixated on getting revenge or dominating others, okay? With Aldebaran, we are gifted with power if we are committed to mental discipline and we are above board. Like Ahura Mazda required his soldiers to be ethical. And it is something where if we have ethical lapses, we can experience the negative sides of Aldebaran. To me, this is a point in Gemini that is saying, hey, be honest. If you're going to lie to yourself or others, you're going to be in trouble. And we have these, that's a challenge sometimes with Mercury ruled signs, is there is flexibility within truth. And we want to be careful that we're not being so flexible with truth that we're being dishonest with ourselves and with others. So it's important. Oh, Julian says that my son, not Keegan. Okay. Oh, Dustin. Okay, gotcha, Julian. That'll be cool. Maybe Dustin will have something important coming for him. Just make sure he doesn't overcommit himself, especially when it comes to his job, because he has Saturn in his 10th house squaring that, potentially. Right, Keegan is your grandson. That's right. I call Keegan your son, too, because you're playing that maternal role for him. But I get it. It is definitely exciting having people that are important to us, potentially having interesting things moving forward. So maybe it's not college scholarship offers just yet for Keegan. I know he's got some time, but maybe there's something coming that's really interesting for your son. Okay, So 2 more aspects before we finish up with a hexagram and with the I-Ching. Okay, you all are troopers for hanging in there. Thank you to those of you who are still hanging out. Thank you for those who have hung out and are listening later. Appreciate all of you. But we have a couple more things, and then we'll wrap it up for the day. So here is the 31st, and we are seeing our final conjunction with Uranus, and this is Mercury conjoining Uranus. So here is another flash of insight about how we might be able to remediate a mistake from the past, or remediate a natural process that was greater than us that we had to humble ourselves to. Now, one way to think about how do you differentiate between these things, look at the houses that these planets host. When the sun comes together with Uranus, look to the Leo topic in your chart. When Venus comes together with Uranus, look to the Libra and Taurus area. When Mercury comes together with Uranus, it's going to be connected with the Virgo area of your chart and with the Gemini area of your chart. So it's an opportunity to go through all sorts of remediations in many areas of our life. That's what's so cool about May, is being able to fix a lot of problems in a lot of different areas. And sometimes one fix leads to a lot of other fixes, right? Like, let's say you improve your health. We've been talking about someone who's wanting to quit smoking. And honestly, Jennifer, you're not the first person that's come to me in the last few weeks wanting to quit smoking. Like that is a perfect example of a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction saying, hey, I realize that this is something that is holding me back. And you'd be amazed at the different energy levels that could inspire changes in other areas of your life. Same thing with me and my diet. Me being in less pain day to day from eating things that caused, gastric upset could lead to changes in all sorts of other areas of my life. You'd be amazed at what happens when we feel vital and hopeful again, and we're not living in chronic pain. Like it's incredible what that can lead to. So keep that in mind when we're going through this month. Julian's giving us insight. I think he'll get his LSW internship at the fire department, or he writes a great song. Well, how about both? Like, that would be great. Oh, that'd be fun. I wish Dustin luck, and I hope that he gets that internship. Just be careful. Make sure that if he does that, if he gets that internship, fireman work is dangerous work. That's a great example of the potential for overestimating your ability and trying to do something before you're ready without going through the educational process. So you can probably warn him, say, hey, don't do anything stupid. If you get that internship, make sure you follow the rules, make sure you go through the process before you try to be a hero or something like that. And he most likely, if he goes through it, he probably will be a hero. But you have to go through the safety protocols. You have to go through all of the educational knowledge so that you can make sure that you're safe when you do it and other people are as well. So, and he probably knows that. He probably will get, have a experience of that potentially. Jennifer says, my mom has 5 planets in her 3rd house, Gemini sun at 9 degrees, also have a Pluto opposition. Oh my goodness. Well, good luck to your mom, Jennifer. LPC. What is LPC, Julene? I don't know what that is. So maybe he's not going to be a firefighter exactly. Maybe he will. No kidding. Agree. He's a counselor trying to get his license so he can work in counseling, but needs an internship in the fire department is open. It's just for education hours. That makes more sense. Well, again, we can still apply the same concept of not overestimating your abilities. I would say that if I was to make an adjustment to that, firefighting and police work and all of those things is very stressful and very traumatic. You watch literally people die. So I think that if he's going to do something like that, making sure he's brushing up on those types of grief counseling, making sure that he's not trying to push those people too far too quickly, and understanding how to deal with and create containers for the trauma and the nerves that might be touched in that work. So that could be a new educational way of looking at it, to be able to deal with those types of traumatic experiences. Because my goodness, I have a stepdad who was a police officer, and he went through hell. So I've seen it firsthand. But good luck to him, and he would be doing great work helping those folks, because it's necessary to help people who have been in service like that, fire, police, army, whatever. And sometimes people get involved in those things and they didn't know any better when they were younger, and then they've had to deal with the fallout from that. And we can have existential arguments about, you know, those as systems and soldiers and things like that. But oftentimes people are just becoming cogs in a larger machine, and we need to support those people when they've experienced trauma in service of other people. All right. Last thing, friends. I'm just going to give you a little tiny preview going into June because I think that this is important. Mercury's going under the beams on June 1st. So it'll be in the process of going under the beams of the sun, getting ready for its own Cazimi, I believe in June. And it's going under the beams at 26 degrees of Taurus, which is on the fixed star Algol. So I want you to be really careful about the conversations that you're having at the very end of the month and the very beginning of June, because it could be very easy to lose control of ourselves and lose control of our emotions because we're feeling overwhelmed, because we're feeling like we just are exploring so many paths. So stay grounded, stay kind, and that could be something to keep in mind as we go forward. All right. Oh my goodness, that is the astrology of May. So let's move forward and talk about, so that was our Mercury under the beams, just showing you that. So let's go back here and let's bring up the I-Ching. What do you say? Before I talk about the I-Ching, do me a huge favor. Make sure you like and subscribe. Subscribe to the newsletter if you want to know when I'm going live. I do adjust the time every once in a while. I'll hopefully give you a heads up if I go live tomorrow. I feel 99% sure that I'll do it, depending on how late I stay up tonight. But I'll try to get some sleep for you so that I'm refreshed. And if you want to make a donation to the work I'm doing, you can buy a super chat or a super sticker. Thank you to everyone who supported the work I'm doing in the channel today. Easiest thing you can do is like the video and subscribe to the channel. That is wonderful. All of your comments really support the work that I do here too. I love the interactions that we have on this channel. So keep it coming. Yeah, thank you, Julian. So we're going to bring up the I-Ching. So here's the I-Ching. We're asking, what is the essence of the astrology of May 2024? The hexagram I got for you all for May 2024 was number 6, which translates to conflict. Which is interesting because we've been talking about this, having good fortune in this month, but it also translates to contention, arbitration, demanding justice, speaking out. Jack M. Balkin in his wonderful translation says that this hexagram is the inverse of the previous one. Shu, I believe, XU, Shu waits patiently for the right moment to act for action and grows strong. While Song, this is the name of this, the Chinese name Song, voices grievances and fights for what is right. The ideograph of Song symbolizes a person speaking out in public and asking for justice. Now, we've seen people speaking out for justice, especially in the conflicts in the Middle East, and those voices have become louder and louder, and they should, because we shouldn't ignore some of those atrocities that are going on. So I think that those types of things might get even more poignant as we move forward. If we're talking about collective astrology, there might also be some things in your own life, in your personal life, that are worth speaking up and speaking out about. So finding our voice. Taurus rules the throat. So finding our voice again and eliminating the blockages and the habits that may create the blockages. If we're talking about like things like smoking or something like that, those can suppress our voices. So we want to be able to speak loudly and clearly and with grace and kindness so that we can move forward within our lives. Now, there are a few changing lines with this hexagram. Line number 1 says, if he does not perpetrate the affair, although there may be little criticism, in the end there is good fortune. So let's go back to Jack's translation. It says, conflicts quickly spin out of control when people egg each other on and when they answer small aggressions with larger ones. If a conflict has just arisen, end it quickly, without bringing matters to a head or forcing a decision, even if this means dropping the issue entirely. See, this is important. This is a warning for our Mars North Node conjunction. We may find ourselves in a competitive situation or one with a conflict with somebody. It can it can easily spiral out of control with Mars conjoining the North Node because we desperately desire to be right. It also can get hairy when we have those squares with Pluto. If you're having an argument with someone, a Pluto square can make it ugly. Okay. At the end of the month, when we have those planets going over Algol, it can get ugly. So we want to make sure that we know when to say when. When we know when to say, you know what, let's just table this for the day. Let's retreat and let's figure out an equitable solution. Line number 3 says, nourish yourself on ancient virtue. Persevere in the face of danger, and in the end, good fortune comes. If one works for a lord, one should take no credit for success. So let's go back to Jack. He says, to nourish yourself on ancient virtue means that one should rely on traditional values of hard work and take quiet pride in the quality of one's accomplishments. What you've achieved through your own merits and your own hard work is yours. Even if others try to take credit or contest the value of your accomplishments, the knowledge that you have done good work cannot be taken from you. Material goods and status are enjoyable things, but they can be snatched away in a moment through the vicissitudes of fortune. Your inner worth, however, belongs to yourself alone. What a person has achieved because of the strength of his or her own character can never be lost. That's great advice, especially through Taurus season when we get really fixated on material security. This is important to understand that no one can take that away from you, your self-worth, right? And this is changing to the hexagram number 1, which is very yang. This is undifferentiated yang. It's called the dynamic. Activity, creativity, dynamic force, assertion, strength, decisiveness, strong action, going forward, moving upward, undertaking something, constant and ceaseless exertion. Okay, so if we're able to maintain our integrity when the inevitable roadblocks, challenges come up, that can lead to a very creative potential energy. Okay, check in with all of you. KP, thank you so much for the super sticker, friend. Says thank you as always for this safe space and your generosity. Thank you for your generosity, Karen. Appreciate you and good luck to the Browns. Really appreciate your generosity. Thank you, Prudence, for the hearts. I appreciate you, friend. Love seeing you in the chat and your insights as well, my friend. I love our Canadian friends. I think that my grandma's from London, Ontario, and I think that there's a little bit of a special place in my heart for Canada. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, so we've got one more thing for you. The animal I pulled for you is pretty interesting. It's the elephant. And it really speaks to that ancient wisdom and that endurance. Here we see an elephant mother with a baby, and elephants are very loyal. Elephants are representatives of loyalty to family. They represent inner strength. They represent physical strength. They are excellent at overcoming obstacles. Sometimes they can just, mow down obstacles in their path, and it doesn't even affect them. They have really thick skin. They have these sensitive trunks. They are very beautiful, sensitive animals. They're extremely wise and intelligent, and they have great memories. They can remember people in their herd. They can remember, areas and navigational things. So work on cultivating memory. Be communicative in your personal relationships rather than distant. Be gentle and intelligent in your conversations rather than brutish, right? Try not to create your dreams through force. Try to create it through grace. Connect with the ancient wisdom that helps you feel that you are part of a much larger cycle rather than getting caught up in the daily turnings. Oftentimes I look at astrology and I like to see things in the larger context of my life and the lives of others. The truth of the matter is that human lives are very short. Actually, they're very long in relative to some other short lives, and they're very short in relative to the earth itself. And oftentimes we'll get so fixated on something in the moment, and we don't understand that it is leading to something grander and more poignant in the future. So Elephant helps us to contextualize those things in the larger cycles of our life, okay, and taking an impartial viewpoint. They love water activities, so maybe just get out and like take a bath or go for a swim or something if it's warm enough in your area, and connect with your inner strength as well as with your physical strength. I know a lot of times during Taurus season, people are trying to build and garden and things like that. Take that same energy for building something beautiful in your life and give it to yourself. Give it to building a new habit, a new character trait, a new ability to let go of a bad habit that's limiting your ability to move forward with your life. You'll be amazed at when you make healthy choices in your life. When you replace something that is unhealthy with something healthy, it is so empowering. And it's hard to do sometimes, and it takes practice, and there's going to sometimes be backtracking, and then one step forward, 2 steps back. But if you keep at it, which is a Taurus quality, I think you're going to find yourself in a pretty good position moving forward. So, my friends, that is what I have for you today. So appreciate all of you. Be like the elephant, take your time, be kind to your family, be kind to your friends, be kind to your communities, be kind to yourself. Trust your inner wisdom, trust your instincts, and that is going to help us to be better people in the world and to shine our light and to create peace wherever we go, because we bring it with us. Even if there is chaos around us, we bring our peace to whatever situations we engage with. So friends, do me a huge favor. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, sign up for the newsletter, potentially join me tomorrow for some NFL draft talk, specifically about the charts of some of these young dynamic athletes. And then go over to Spencer Michaud, check out the offerings that I have over there, and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads at Spencer Michaud. All right, my friends, that's what I've got for you. Appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Have a amazing football Christmas and draft evening if you are into that kind of thing. Support those young gentlemen whose dreams are coming true right in front of our faces, and just have fun with it. Have fun this evening, no matter what you do. Enjoy, get out and smell the flowers. Enjoy some beauty around you. That's good advice for any Taurus season. I know for a lot of us here, football is something that we just enjoy to do, but there's probably other things in your life that you could just do that could give you a little bit of a break from any of the stress or anxiety. Embrace it. Embrace it, friends. All right. So we'll see you the next time, possibly tomorrow. Have fun. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to one another. And we'll see you the next time. Peace.